My assumption is that this is going to be a longish budget, so let's listen it.
I rise to lay on the table a copy each of the following papers, Hindi and English versions, under Article 281 of the Constitution, Report for 2026 to 2031, Volume 1, Main Report of the 16th Finance Commission. 2. Report for 2026-2031, Volume 2, Annexures of the 16th Finance Commission. Number 3, explanatory memorandum as to the action taken on the recommendations contained in the above report.
Item number 2, माननीय वित्त मंत्री निर्मला सीतारमण जी.
Honorable Speaker, sir, on the sacred occasion of Magh Purnima and the birth anniversary of Guru Ravidas, I present the budget for the year 2026-2027. Since we assumed office 12 years ago, India's economic trajectory has been marked by stability, fiscal discipline, sustained growth, and moderate inflation. This is the result of conscious choices we have made, even in times heightened uncertainty and disruption. Our government, led by Honorable Prime Minister Modi, has decisively and consistently chosen action over ambivalence, reform over rhetoric, and people over populism. We have pursued far-reaching structural reforms, fiscal prudence and monetary stability, whilst maintaining a strong thrust on public investment. Keeping Atmanirbharta as a lodestar, we have built domestic manufacturing capacity, energy security, and reduced critical import dependencies. Simultaneously, we have ensured that citizens benefit from every action of the government, undertaking reforms to support employment generation, agricultural productivity, household purchasing power, and universal services to people. These measures have delivered a high growth rate of around 7% and helped us make substantial strides in poverty reduction and improvement in the lives of our people. Today, we face an external environment in which trade and multilateralism are imperiled and access to resources and supply chains are disrupted. New technologies are transforming production systems while sharply increasing demands on water, energy, and critical minerals. India will continue to take confident steps towards Vikasit Bharat, balancing ambition with inclusion. As a growing economy with expanding trade and capital needs, India must also remain deeply integrated with global markets, exporting more and attracting stable long-term investment. As I begin Part A, I want to express my gratitude to the people for standing firmly with us as we forge our way together towards becoming one of the largest economies of the world. Our aim is to transform aspiration into achievement and potential into performance as we ensure that the dividends of growth reach every farmer, the scheduled caste, the scheduled tribes, the nomads, the youth, the poor, and the women. In Vikasit Bharat Young Leaders Dialogue 2026, several innovative ideas were shared with our Prime Minister, which have inspired many of the proposals, making this a unique Yuva Shakti-driven budget. Our government's sankalp is to focus on our poor, underprivileged, and the disadvantaged. To deliver on this sankalp, and given that this is the first budget prepared in Kartavya Bhavan, we are inspired by three Kartavya. Our first Kartavya is to accelerate and sustain economic growth by enhancing productivity and competitiveness and building resilience to volatile global dynamics. Our second Kartavya is to fulfill aspirations of our people and build their capacity, making them strong partners in India's path to prosperity. Our third Kartavya, aligned with our vision of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, is to ensure that every family, community, region, and sector has access to resources, amenities, and opportunities for meaningful participation. This threefold approach requires a supportive ecosystem. The first requirement is to sustain the momentum of structural reforms, continuous, adaptive, and forward-looking. Second, a robust and resilient financial sector is central to mobilizing savings, allocating capital efficiently, and managing risks. Third, cutting-edge technologies, including AI applications, can serve us as force multipliers for better governance. Reform Express. Our government has undertaken comprehensive reforms towards creating employment, boosting productivity, and accelerating growth. After the Prime Minister's announcement on Independence Day in 2025, over 350 reforms have been rolled out. This includes GST simplification, notification of labor codes, and rationalization of mandatory quality control orders. High-level committees have been formed, and in parallel, the central government is working with the state governments on deregulation and reducing compliance requirements. The Reform Express is well on its way and will maintain its momentum to help us fulfill our Kartavya. I now move to specific proposals. Under our first Kartavya, to accelerate and sustain economic growth, I propose interventions in 6 areas. 1. Scaling up manufacturing in 7 strategic and frontier sectors. 2. Rejuvenating legacy industrial sectors. 3. Creating champion MSMEs. 4. Delivering a powerful push for infrastructure. 5. Ensuring long-term security and stability. And 6. Developing city economic regions. Scaling up of manufacturing in 7 strategic and frontier sectors. Biopharma Shakti, meaning biopharma strategy for health advancement through knowledge, technology, and innovation. India's disease burden is observed to be shifting towards non-communicable diseases like diabetes, cancer, and autoimmune disorders. Biologic medicines are key to longevity and quality of life at affordable costs. To develop India as a global biopharma manufacturing hub, I propose the Biopharma Shakti with an outlay of 10,000 crores over the next 5 years. This will build the ecosystem for domestic production of biologics and biosimilars. The strategy will include a biopharma-focused network with 3 new national institutes of pharmaceutical education and research, popularly known as NIPERs, and upgrading 7 existing ones. It will also create a network of 1,000 accredited India clinical trials sites We propose to strengthen the Central Drug Standard Control Organization to meet global standards and approve timeframes through and approval timeframes through a dedicated scientific review cadre and specialists. India's Semiconductor Mission 1.0 expanded India's semiconductor sector capabilities. Building on this, we will launch ISM 2.0 to produce equipment and materials, design full-stack Indian IP, and fortify supply chains. We will also focus on industry-led research and training centers to develop technology and skilled workforce. The Electronics Components Manufacturing Scheme, launched in April 2025 with an outlay of 22,919 crores, already has investment commitments at double the targets. We propose to increase the outlay to 40,000 crores to capitalize on this momentum. A scheme for rare earth permanent magnets was launched in 2025 November. We now propose to support the mineral-rich states of Odisha, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu to establish dedicated rare earth corridors to promote mining, processing, research and manufacturing. To enhance domestic chemical production and reduce import dependency, we will launch a scheme to support states in establishing 3 dedicated chemical parks through challenge route on a cluster-based plug-and-play model. Strong capital goods. Strong capital goods capability is a determinant of productivity and quality across different sectors. Towards building this capacity, I propose the following. High-tech tool rooms will be established by central public sector enterprises at 2 locations as digitally enabled automated service bureaus that locally design, test and manufacture high-precision components at scale and at lower cost. 2. A scheme for enhancement of construction and infrastructure equipments will be introduced to strengthen domestic manufacturing of high value and technologically advanced CIE. This can range from lifts in a multi-storied apartment or firefighting equipment in multiplexes, large or small, and to tunnel boring equipments for building metros and high-altitude roads. I also propose a scheme for container manufacturing to create a globally competitive container manufacturing ecosystem with a budgetary allocation of 10,000 crores over a 5-year period. For the labor-intensive textile sector, I propose an integrated program with 5 subparts. 1. The National Fiber Scheme for self-reliance in natural fibers, such as silk, wool and jute, man-made fibers and new age fibers. Textile expansion and employment scheme to modernize traditional clusters with capital support for machinery, technology upgradation and common testing and certification centers. 3. The National Handloom and Handicraft Program to integrate and strengthen existing schemes and ensure targeted support for weavers and artisans. Tex Eco Initiative to promote globally competitive and sustainable textiles and apparels. Samarth 2.0 to modernize the upgrade the textile skilling ecosystem through collaboration with industry and academic institutions. Further, I propose to set up mega textile parks in challenge mode They can also focus on bringing value addition to technical textiles. I propose to launch the Mahatma Gandhi Gram Swaraj initiative to strengthen khadi, handloom and handicrafts. This will help in global market linkage and branding. It will streamline and support training, skilling, quality of process and production. This will benefit our weavers, village industries, one district, one product ODOP initiative and also our rural youth. India has the potential to emerge as a global hub for high quality, affordable sports goods. I propose a dedicated initiative for sports goods that will promote manufacturing, research and innovation in equipment design as well as material sciences. Rejuvenation of legacy industrial clusters. I propose to introduce a scheme to revive 200 legacy industrial clusters to improve their cost competitiveness and efficiency through infrastructure and technology upgradation. Creating champion SMEs and supporting micro enterprises. Recognizing MSMEs as a vital engine of growth, I propose a three-pronged approach to help them grow as champions. Equity support. I propose to introduce a dedicated 10,000 crores SME growth fund to create future champions, incentivizing enterprises based on select criteria. I also propose to top up the Self-Reliant India Fund set up in 2021 with 2,000 crores to continue support to micro enterprises and maintain their access to risk capital. Liquidity support. With TREDS, more than 7 lakh crore has been made available to MSMEs. To leverage its full potential, I propose 4 measures. 1. Mandate TREDS as the transaction settlement platform for all purchases from MSMEs by CPSEs, serving as a benchmark for other corporates. 2. Introduce a credit guarantee support mechanism through CGTMSE for invoice discounting on TREDS platform. 3. Link GEM with TREDS for sharing information with financiers about government purchases from MSMEs, encouraging cheaper and quicker financing. 4. Introduce TREDS receivables as asset-backed securities, helping develop a secondary market, enhancing liquidity and settlement of transactions. Professional support. Government will facilitate professional institutions such as the ICAI, ICSI, ICMAI to design short-term modular courses and practical tools to develop a cadre of corporate mitras, especially in Tier 2 and Tier 3 towns. These accredited para-professionals will help MSMEs meet compliance requirements at affordable costs. Infrastructure. During this past decade, our government has undertaken several initiatives for large-scale enhancement of public infrastructure, including through new financing instruments such as Infrastructure Investment Trust (InvITs) and Real Estate Investment Trust (REITs), and institutions like NIIF and NABFID. We shall continue to focus on developing infrastructure in cities with over 5 lakh population, that is Tier 2, Tier 3 cities, which have expanded to become growth centers. Public capital expenditure has increased manifold from 2 lakh crore in 2014-15 to an allocation of 11.2 lakh crore in BE 25-26. In this coming year, that is financial year 2026-27, I propose to increase it to 12.2 lakh crores to continue the momentum. To strengthen the confidence of private developers regarding risks during infrastructure development and construction phase, I propose to set up an infrastructure risk guarantee fund to provide prudentially calibrated partial credit guarantee to lenders. Over the years, RITES have emerged as a successful instrument for asset monetization. I propose to accelerate recycling of significant real estate assets of the CPSEs through the setting up of dedicated RITES. To promote environmentally sustainable movement of cargo, I propose to 1. Establish new dedicated freight corridors connecting Dankuni in the east to Surat in the west. Operationalize 20 new national waterways over the next 5 years. Starting with National Waterways 5 in Orissa to connect mineral-rich areas of Talcher and Angul and industrial centers like Kalinga Nagar to the ports of Paradeep and Dhamra. Training institutes will be set up as regional centers of excellence for development of required manpower for these waterways. This will benefit youth in the entire stretch of the waterways to train and acquire skills. Further, a ship repair ecosystem catering to inland waterways will also be set up at Varanasi and Patna. And C, launch a coastal cargo promotion scheme for incentivizing a modal shift from rail to road to increase the share of inland waterways and coastal shipping from 6% to 12% by 2047. To enhance last mile and remote connectivity and promote tourism, I propose to give incentives to indigenize manufacturing of seaplanes. A seaplane VGF scheme will be also introduced to provide support for operations. Carbon capture, utilization and storage. Aligning with the roadmap launched in December 2025, the carbon capture, utilization and storage technologies at scale will achieve higher readiness and in end-use application across 5 industrial sectors, including power, steel, cement, refineries, and chemicals. An outlay of 20,000 crore is proposed over the next 5 years for this purpose. City economic regions. Cities are India's engines of growth, innovation, and opportunities. We shall now focus on Tier 2, Tier 3 cities, and even temple towns, which need modern infrastructure and basic amenities. This budget aims to further amplify the potential of cities to deliver the economic power of agglomerations by mapping city economic regions based on their specific growth drivers. An allocation of 5,000 crore per CER over 5 years is proposed for implementing their plans through a challenge mode with a reform-cum-result-based financing mechanism. In order to promote environmentally sustainable passenger systems, we will develop 7 high-speed rail corridors between cities as growth connectors, namely Mumbai to Pune, Pune to Hyderabad, Hyderabad to Bengaluru, Hyderabad to Chennai, Chennai to Bengaluru, Delhi to Varanasi, Varanasi to Siliguri. Financial sector. The Indian banking sector today is characterized by strong balance sheet, historic highs in profitability, improved asset quality, and coverage exceeding 98% of villages in the country. At this juncture, we are well placed to futuristically evaluate the measures needed to continue on the path of reform-led growth of this sector. I propose setting up a high-level committee on banking for Vikasit Bharat. High-level committee on banking for Vikasit Bharat to comprehensively review the sector and align it with India's next phase of growth, while safeguarding financial stability, inclusion, and consumer protection. The vision for NBFCs for Vikasit Bharat has been outlined with clear targets for credit disbursement and technology adoption in order to achieve scale and improve efficiency in the public sector NBFCs. As a first step, it is proposed to restructure the Power Finance Corporation and Rural Electrification Corporation. I propose a comprehensive review of the foreign exchange management non-debt instruments rules to create a more contemporary, user-friendly framework for foreign investments consistent with India's evolving economic priorities. Corporate bond market. I propose to introduce a market-making framework with suitable access to funds and derivatives on corporate bond indices. I also propose to introduce total return swaps on corporate bonds. Municipal bonds. To encourage the issuance of municipal bonds of higher value by larger cities, I propose an incentive of 100 crore rupees for a single bond issuance. 100 crore rupees for a single bond issuance of more than 1,000 crore. The current scheme under Amrit which incentivizes issuances up to 200 crores only, will also continue to support smaller and medium towns. That will also continue to support the smaller and medium towns. Ease of doing business. Individual persons resident outside India, PROI, will be permitted to invest in equity instruments of listed Indian companies through the portfolio investment scheme. It is also proposed to increase the investment limit for an individual PROI under the scheme from 5% to 10%, with an overall investment limit for all individual PROIs to 24% from the current 10%. Emerging technologies including AI. 21st century is technology driven. Adoption of technology is for the benefit of all people. Farmers in the field, women in STEM, youth keen to upskill, and Divyangjan to access newer opportunities. The government has taken several steps to support new technologies through AI Mission, National Quantum Mission, Anusandhan National Research Fund, and Research and Development and Innovation Fund. Our second kartavya is to fulfill aspirations and build capacities. Close to 25 crore individuals have come out of multi-dimensional poverty through a decade of our government's sustained and reform-oriented efforts. Our government has therefore decided to place a renewed emphasis on the service sector to provide a pathway to fulfilling aspirations of a youthful India with the following measures. I propose to set up a high-powered Education to Employment and Enterprises Standing Committee to recommend measures that focus on services sector as a core driver of Vikasit Bharat. This will make us a global leader in services with a 10% global share by 2047. The committee will prioritize areas to optimize the potential for growth, employment, and exports. They will also assess the impact of emerging technologies, including AI, on jobs and skill requirements and propose measures thereof. To create a range of skilled career pathways, a new range of skilled career pathways for our youth, I propose interventions in the following sectors. Health. Existing institutions for allied health professionals will be upgraded and new AHP institutions established in private and government sectors. This will cover 10 selected disciplines, including optometry, radiology, anesthesia, OT technology, applied psychology and behavioral health, and add 1 lakh AHPs over the next 5 years. A strong care system covering geriatric and allied care services will be built. A variety of NSQF aligned programs will be developed to train multi-skilled caregivers, combining core care and allied skills such as wellness, yoga, and operation of medical assistive devices. In the coming year, 1.5 lakh caregivers will be trained. Hubs for medical value tourism. To promote India as a hub for medical tourism services, I propose to launch a scheme to support states in establishing 5 regional medical hubs in partnership with the private sector. These hubs will serve as integrated healthcare complexes that combine medical, educational, and research facilities. They will have Ayush centers, medical value tourism facilitation centers, and infrastructure for diagnostics, post-care, and rehabilitation. These hubs will provide diverse opportunities, job opportunities for health professionals, including doctors and AHPs. Ancient Indian yoga, already respected in several parts of the world, was given a mass global recognition when Honorable Prime Minister took it to the UN. Post-COVID, Ayurveda gained a similar global acceptance and recognition. Exporting quality Ayurveda products helps farmers who grow the herbs and youth who process the products. To meet growing global demand, a few more steps are being taken. I propose to 1. Set up 3 new All India Institutes of Ayurveda. 2. Upgrade Ayush pharmacies and drug testing labs for higher standards of certification ecosystem and make available more skilled personnel. 3. Upgrade the WHO Global Traditional Medicine Center in Jamnagar to bolster evidence-based research, training, and awareness for traditional medicine. Animal husbandry. Livestock contributes to close to 16% of farm income, including of poor and marginal households. To scale up availability of veterinary professionals by more than 20,000, I propose to roll out a loan-linked capital subsidy support scheme for establishment of veterinary and para-veterinary colleges, veterinary hospitals, diagnostic laboratories, and breeding facilities in private sector. Collaboration between Indian and foreign institutions will also be facilitated. Orange economy. India's animation, visual effects, gaming and comics sector, ABGC sector, is a growing industry projected to require 2 million professionals by 2030. I propose to support the Indian Institute of Creative Technologies, Mumbai, in setting up ABGC content creator labs in 15,000 secondary schools all over the country and 500 colleges. The Indian design industry is expanding rapidly, and yet there is a shortage of Indian designers. I propose to establish, through Challenge Route, a new National Institute of Design to boost design education and development in the eastern region of India. Education. Our government will support states through Challenge Route in creating 5 university townships in the vicinity of major industrial and logistics corridors. These planned academic zones will host multiple universities, colleges and research institutions, skill centers and residential complexes. In higher education, STEM institutions, prolonged hours of study and laboratory work pose some challenges for girl students. Through VGF, Viability Gap Funding and capital support, one girls' hostel will be established in every district. To promote astrophysics and astronomy via immersive experiences. 4 telescope infrastructure facilities will be set up or upgraded. The National Large Solar Telescope, the National Large Optical Infrared Telescope, the Himalayan Chandra Telescope, and the Cosmos 2 Planetarium. Tourism. The tourism sector has the potential to play a large role in the employment generation, forex earnings, and expanding the local economy. I propose to set up a National Institute of Hospitality by upgrading the existing National Council for Hotel Management and Catering Technology. It will function as a bridge between academia, industry, and government. I also propose a pilot scheme for upskilling 10,000 guides in 20 iconic tourist sites through a standardized, high-quality, 12-week training course in hybrid mode in collaboration with the Indian Institute of Management. A national destination digital knowledge grid will be established to digitally document all places of significance, cultural, spiritual, and heritage. This initiative will create a new ecosystem of jobs for local researchers, historians, content creators, and technology partners. India has the potential and opportunity to offer world-class trekking and hiking experience. We will develop ecologically sustainable mountain trails in Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, and Jammu Kashmir. Also in Araku Valley in the Eastern Ghats and Podigai Malai in the Western Ghats. Turtle trails along key nesting sites in the coastal areas of Odisha, Karnataka, and Kerala. And 3 bird watching trails along the Pulikat Lake in Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu. It's on the border. Under the visionary leadership of Honorable Prime Minister, we established the International Big Cat Alliance in 2024. This year, India is hosting the first ever Global Big Cat Summit, where heads of governments and ministers from 95 range countries will deliberate on collective strategies for conservation. Heritage and culture tourism. I propose to develop 15 archaeological sites, including Lothal, Dholavira, Rakhigarhi, Adichanallur, Sarnath, Hastinapur, and Leh Palace into vibrant experiential cultural destinations. Excavated landscapes will be open to the public through curated walkways. Immersive storytelling skills and technologies will be introduced to help conservation labs, interpretation centers, and guides. The sports sector provides multiple means of employment, skilling, and job opportunities. Taking forward the systematic nurturing of sports talent, which is set in motion through the Khelo India program earlier, I propose to launch a Khelo India mission to transform the sports sector over the next decade. The mission will facilitate an integrated talent development pathway supported by training centers, which are foundational, intermediate, and elite levels. B, systematic development of coaches and support staff. C, integration of sports science and technology. D, competitions and leagues to promote sports culture and provide platforms. And E, development of sports infrastructure for training and competition. Our third Kartavya aligns with our vision of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas towards Vikasit Bharat. This requires targeted efforts for 1, increasing farmer incomes through productivity enhancement and entrepreneurship, with special attention to small and marginal farmers. B, empowering Divyangjan through access to livelihood opportunities, training, and high-quality assistive devices. C, empowering the vulnerable to access mental health and trauma care. D, focus on the Purvodaya states and the Northeast region to accelerate development and employment opportunities. Fisheries. We will undertake initiatives for integrated development of 500 reservoirs and Amrit Sarovars. 2, strengthen the fisheries value chain in coastal areas and enable market linkages involving startups and women-led groups together with fish farmer producer organizations. Animal husbandry. To provide quality employment opportunities in rural and peri-urban areas, we will support the animal husbandry sector in entrepreneurship development through A, credit-linked subsidy program, B, scaling up and modernization of livestock enterprises, C, enhanced creation of livestock, dairy, and poultry, enhanced creation of livestock, dairy, and poultry-focused integrated value chains, and D, encourage creation of livestock farmer-producer organizations. High-value agriculture. To diversify farm outputs, increase productivity, enhance farmers' incomes, and create new employment opportunities, we will support high-value crops such as coconut, sandalwood, cocoa, cashew in the coastal areas, agar trees in northeast, and nuts such as almonds, walnuts, and pine nuts in our hilly regions. These, all of them, will be supported. India is the world's largest producer of coconuts. About 30 million people, including nearly 10 million farmers, depend on coconuts for their livelihood. To further enhance competitiveness in coconut production, I propose a coconut promotion scheme to increase production and enhance productivity through various interventions, including including replacing and non-productive trees with new saplings or plants or varieties in major coconut growing states. A dedicated program is proposed for Indian cashew and cocoa to make India self-reliant in raw cashew and coconut production and processing, enhance export competitiveness, and transform Indian cashew and Indian cocoa into premium global brands by 2030. Sandalwood. Sandalwood is closely linked to India's social and cultural heritage. Our government will partner with state governments to promote focused cultivation and post-harvest processing to restore the glory of the Indian sandalwood ecosystem, to rejuvenate old, low-yielding orchards and expand high-density cultivation of walnuts, almonds, and pine nuts. We will support a dedicated program to enhance farmer incomes and in bringing value addition by engaging youth. Bharat Vistar, that is virtually integrated system to access agricultural resources. I propose to launch Bharat Vistar, a multilingual AI tool that shall integrate the AgriStack portals and the ICAR package on agricultural practices with AI systems. This will enhance farm productivity, enable better decisions for farmers, and reduce risk by providing customized advisory support. She Marts for rural women-led enterprises. Building on the success of Lakpati Didi program, I propose to help women take the next step from credit-linked livelihoods to being owners of enterprises. Self-help entrepreneur, She Marts will be set up as community-owned retail outlets within the cluster-level federations through enhanced and innovative financing instruments. Empowering Divyangjan. Divyangjan Kaushal Yojana. Information technology, AVGC sectors, hospitality and food and beverages sectors often offer task-oriented and process-driven roles which are suitable for Divyangjan. We will ensure dignified livelihood opportunities through industry-relevant and customized training specific to each Divyangjan group. Divyang Sahara Yojana. Timely access to high-quality assistive devices for all eligible Divyangjan is a fundamental need. I propose to 1. Support the Artificial Limbs Manufacturing Corporation of India, Alimco, to set up and to scale up production of assistive devices, invest in R&D and AI integration, strengthen PM Divyasha Kendras, and support setting up of assistive technology marts as modern retail style centers where Divyangjan and senior citizens can see, try and purchase assistive products. Reaffirming our commitment to mental health and trauma care. There are no national institutes for mental health care in North India. We will therefore set up a NIMHANS 2 and also upgrade national mental health institutes in Ranchi and in Tezpur as regional apex institutions. Emergencies expose families, particularly the poor and vulnerable, to unexpected expenditure. We will strengthen and increase these capacities by 50% in district hospitals by establishing emergency and trauma care centers. Focus on Purvodaya states and northeastern regions. Purvodaya. I propose the development of an integrated East Coast industrial corridor with a well-connected node at Durgapur, creation of 5 tourism destinations in 5 Purvodaya states, and the provision of 4,000 e-buses. Buddhist sites in northeastern region. The northeastern region is a civilizational confluence of Theravada and Mahayana or Vajrayana traditions. I propose to launch a scheme for development of Buddhist circuits in Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim, Assam, Manipur, Mizoram, and Tripura. The scheme will cover preservation of temples and monasteries, pilgrimage interpretation centers, connectivity, and pilgrim amenities. 16th Finance Commission. On 17th November 2025, the 16th Finance Commission submitted its report to the President. As mandated under Article 281 of the Constitution, the government is to lay the report along with the explanatory memorandum on the action taken report on the recommendations of the Commission in Parliament, which, Sir, Honourable Speaker, you've allowed me to do at the commencement of this session. The government has accepted the recommendation of the Commission to retain the vertical share of devolution at 41%. As recommended by the Commission, I have provided 1.4 lakh crores of rupees to the states for the year 2026-2027 as Finance Commission grants. These include rural and urban local body and disaster management grants. Fiscal consolidation. Government has been delivering on our fiscal commitments consistently without compromising on social needs. To strive towards accepted standards of fiscal management in Budget 25-26, I had indicated that the central government would target reaching a debt to GDP ratio of 50 plus or minus 1% by 2030-31. In line with this, the debt to GDP ratio is estimated to be 55.6% of GDP in BE 26-27. compared to 56.1% of GDP in RE 25-26. A declining debt to GDP ratio will gradually free up resources for priority sector lending and expenditure by reducing the outgo on interest payments. One of the main operational instruments for debt targeting is the fiscal deficit. I am happy to inform this august House that I fulfilled my commitment made in 2021-2022 to reduce fiscal deficit below 4.5% of GDP by 25-26. In RE 25-26, the fiscal deficit has been estimated at par with BE of 2025-26 at 4.4% of GDP. In line with the new fiscal prudence path of debt consolidation, the fiscal deficit in BE 26-27 is estimated to be 4.3% of the GDP. The revised estimates of the non-debt receipts are 34 lakh crore rupees, of which the centre's net tax receipts are 26.7 lakh crore. The revised estimate of the total expenditure is 49.6 lakh crore rupees, of which the capital expenditure is about 11 lakh crores. Budget estimates 2026 to 2027. Coming to 26-27, the non-debt receipts and the total expenditure are estimated as 36.5 lakh crore and 53.5 lakh crore respectively. The centre's net tax receipts are estimated at 28.7 lakh crore rupees. To finance the fiscal deficit, the net market borrowings from dated securities are estimated at 11.7 lakh crore rupees. The balance financing is expected to come from small savings and other sources. The gross market borrowings are estimated at 17.2 lakh crore rupees. I'll now move to Part B. Part B, direct taxes. Honorable Speaker, sir, I now present my proposals on direct taxes. New Income Tax Act. In July 2024, I announced a comprehensive review of the Income Tax Act 1961. This was completed in a record time, and the Income Tax Act 2025 will come into effect from 1st April 2026. The simplified income tax rules and forms will be notified shortly, giving adequate time to taxpayers to acquaint themselves with its requirements. The forms have been redesigned such that ordinary citizens can comply without difficulty. Ease of living. I propose that any interest awarded by the Motor Accident Claims Tribunal to a natural person will be exempt from income tax, and any TDS on this account will be done away with. I propose to reduce TCS rate on the sale of overseas tour program package from the current 5% and 20% to 2% without any stipulation of amount. I propose to reduce TCS rate for pursuing education and for medical purposes under the Liberalized Remittance Scheme, popularly known as LRS, from 5% to 2%. Supply of manpower services is proposed to be specifically brought within the ambit of payment to contractors for the purpose of TDS to avoid ambiguity. Thus, TDS on these services will be at the rate of either 1% or 2% only. I propose a scheme for small taxpayers, wherein a rule-based automated process will enable obtaining a lower or nil deduction certificate instead of filing an application with the assessing officer. For the ease of taxpayer holding securities in multiple companies, I propose to enable depositories to accept Form 15G or Form 15H from the investor and provide it directly to various relevant companies. I propose to extend time available for revising returns from 31st December to up to 31st March with the payment of a nominal fee. I also propose to stagger the timeline for filing of tax returns. Individuals with ITR 1 and ITR 2 returns will continue to file till 31st July, and non-audit business cases or trusts are proposed to be allowed time till 31st August. TDS on sale of immovable property by a non-resident is proposed to be deducted and deposited through resident buyers and his or her PAN-based challan instead of requiring a TAN, which is a temporary accounting number. To address practical issues of small taxpayers like students, young professionals, tech employees, relocated NRIs, and such others, I propose to introduce a one-time 6-month foreign asset disclosure scheme for these taxpayers to disclose income or assets below a certain size. This scheme would be applicable for two categories of taxpayers, namely, A, who did not disclose their overseas income or assets, and B, who disclosed their overseas income and or paid due tax but could not declare the asset acquired. For category A, the limit of undisclosed income or asset is proposed to be up to 1 crore rupees. They need to pay 30% of fair market value of asset or 30% of undisclosed income as tax and 30% as additional income tax in lieu of penalty, and would thereby get immunity from prosecution. For category B, asset value is proposed to be up to 5 crore rupees. Here, immunity from both penalty and prosecution will be available with a payment of fee of 1 lakh rupees. Rationalizing penalty and prosecution. Multiplicity of proceedings are hindrance to the ease of doing business. I propose to integrate assessment and penalty proceedings by way of a common order for both. There will be no interest liability on the taxpayer on the penalty amount for the period of appeal before the first appellate authority, irrespective of the outcome of appeal process. Further, quantum of prepayment is being reduced from 20% to 10% and will continue to be calculated only on core tax demand. As an additional measure for reducing litigation, I propose to allow taxpayers to update their returns even after reassessment proceedings have been initiated, and an additional 10% tax rate over and above the rate applicable for the relevant year. The assessing officer will then use only this updated return in his proceedings. There is already a framework for immunity from penalty and prosecution in the cases of underreporting. I propose to apply this framework for immunity to misreporting too. However, in such a case, the taxpayer will need to pay 100% of the tax amount as an additional income tax over and above the tax and interest due. Penalties for certain technical defaults, such as failure to get accounts audited, non-furnishing of transfer pricing audit report, and default in furnishing statement for financial transactions, are proposed to be converted into fee. I propose to rationalize prosecution framework under Income Tax Act while maintaining a careful balance for deterrence in some serious offence. Non-production of books of account and documents and requirement of TDS payment where payment is made in kind are being decriminalized. Further, minor offences will attract fine only. The remaining prosecutions will be graded commensurate with the quantum of offence. They will entail only simple imprisonment with maximum imprisonment reduced to 2 years and power to courts to convert even those into fines. There is no penalty. There is no penalty presently for non-disclosure of non-immovable foreign assets with aggregate value less than 20 lakh rupees. I propose to also provide them with immunity from prosecution with retrospective effect from 1/10/2024. Cooperatives. Deduction is already allowed to a primary cooperative society engaged in supplying milk, oilseeds, fruits or vegetables raised or grown by its members. I propose to extend this deduction to also include supply of cattle feed and cotton seed produced by its members. I propose to allow inter-cooperative society dividend income as deduction under the new tax regime to the extent it is further distributed to its members. I further propose to allow exemption for a period of 3 years to dividend income received by a notified national cooperative federation on their investments made in companies up to 31/1/2026. This exemption would be allowed only for dividends further distributed to its member cooperatives. Supporting IT sector as India's growth engine. India is a global leader in software development services, IT-enabled services, knowledge process outsourcing services, and contract R&D services relating to software development. These businesses and their segments are quite interconnected with each other. All these services are proposed to be clubbed under a single category of information technology services with a common safe harbor margin of 15.5% applicable to all. The threshold for availing safe harbor for IT services is being enhanced substantially from 300 crore rupees to 2,000 crore rupees. Safe harbor for IT services shall be approved by an automated rule-driven process without any need for tax officer to examine and accept the application. Once applied by an IT services company, the same safe harbor can be continued for a period of 5 years at a stretch at its choice. For IT services companies who want to conclude advanced pricing agreement, APA, I propose to fast-track unilateral APA process for IT services and endeavor to conclude it within a period of 2 years. The period of 2 years can be extended by a further period of 6 months on taxpayers' request. I propose to extend the facility of modified returns available to the entity entering APA to its associated entities also. Attracting global business and investment. Recognizing the need to enable critical infrastructure and boost investment in data centers, I propose to provide tax holiday till 2047 to any foreign company that provides cloud services to customers globally by using data center services from India. It will, however, need to provide services to Indian customers through an Indian reseller entity. I also propose to provide a safe harbor of 15% on cost in case the company providing data center services from India is a related entity. To harness the efficiency of just-in-time logistics for electronic manufacturing, I propose to provide safe harbor to non-residents for component warehousing in a bonded warehouse at a profit margin of 2% of the invoice value. The resultant tax of about 0.7% will be much lower than in competing jurisdictions. To provide fillip to toll manufacturing in India, I propose to provide exemption from income tax for 5 years to any non-resident who provides capital goods, equipment, or tooling to any toll manufacturer in a bonded zone. To encourage vast pool of global talent to work in India for a longer period of time, I propose to provide exemption to global, non-India sourced income of a non-resident expert for a stay period of 5 years under notified schemes. I propose to provide exemption from minimum alternate tax, the MAT, to all non-residents who pay tax on presumptive basis. Tax administration. I propose to constitute a joint committee of Ministry of Corporate Affairs and Central Board of Direct Taxes for incorporating the requirements of income computation and disclosure standards, the ICDS, in the Indian Accounting Standards, Ind AS itself. Separate accounting requirement based on ICDS will be done away with from the tax year 27-28. To support Prime Minister Modi's vision of homegrown accounting and advisory firms to become global leaders, I propose to rationalize the definition of accountant for the purposes of safe harbor rules. Other tax proposals. Change in taxation of buyback was brought in to address the improper use of buyback route by promoters. In the interest of minority shareholders, I propose to tax buyback for all types of shareholders as capital gains. However, to disincentivize misuse of tax arbitrage, promoters will pay an additional buyback tax. This will make effective tax 22% for corporate promoters. For non-corporate promoters, the effective tax will be 30%. TCS rate for sellers of specific goods, namely alcoholic liquor, scrap and minerals, will be rationalized to 2%, and that on tendu leaves will be reduced from 5% to 2%. I propose to raise the STT on futures to 0.05% from the present 0.02%. STT on options premium and exercise of options are both proposed to be raised to 0.15% from the present rate of 0.1% and 0.125% respectively. We reformed the taxation landscape for corporates in 2019 by providing them a simplified regime with lower tax rate so that they could productively focus on business rather than on claim of deductions and exemptions. To encourage companies to shift to the new regime, set off of brought forward MAT credit, minimum alternate tax credit, is proposed to be allowed to companies only in the new regime. Set off using available MAT credit is proposed to be allowed to an extent of 1/4 of the tax liability in the new regime. MAT is proposed to be made final tax, so there will be no further credit accumulation from 1st April 2026. In line with this change, the rate of final tax is being reduced to 14% from the current MAT rate of 15%. The brought forward MAT credit of taxpayers accumulated till 30th March 2026 will continue to be available to them for set off as above. Indirect taxes. I shall now take up proposals related to indirect taxes. My proposals for customs and central excise aim to further simplify the tariff structure, support domestic manufacturing, promote export competitiveness, and correct inversion in duty. To continue weeding out long continuing customs duty exemptions, I propose to remove certain exemptions on items which are being manufactured in India or where the imports are negligible. Similarly, to further simplify the process of ascertaining the rate of duty applicable on a particular item, I propose to incorporate certain effective rates in various customs notifications to the tariff schedule itself. I shall now take up sector-specific proposals. Promotion of exports of marine, leather, and textile products. I propose to increase the limit for duty-free imports of specified inputs used for processing seafoods for export from the current 1% to 3% of FOB value of the previous year's export turnover. I also propose to allow duty-free imports of specified inputs, which is currently available for exports of leather or synthetic footwear, to exports of shoe uppers as well. I propose to extend the time period for export of final product from the existing 6 months to 1 year for exporters of leather or textile garments, leather or synthetic footwear, and other leather products. Energy transition and security. I propose to extend the basic customs duty exemption given to capital goods used for manufacturing lithium-ion cells for batteries to those used for manufacturing lithium-ion cells for battery energy storage systems also. I propose to exempt basic customs duty on import of sodium antimonate for use in manufacture of solar glass. Nuclear power. I propose to extend the existing basic customs duty exemption on imports of goods required for nuclear power projects till the year 2035 and expand it for all nuclear plants irrespective of their capacity. Critical minerals. It is proposed to provide basic customs duty exemption to the import of capital goods required for the processing of critical minerals in India. Biogas blended CNG. I propose to exclude the entire value of biogas while calculating the central excise duty payable on biogas blended CNG. Civil and defense aviation. I propose to exempt basic customs duty on components and parts required for the manufacture of civilian training and other aircrafts. It is proposed to exempt basic customs duty on raw materials imported for the manufacture of parts of aircraft to be used in maintenance, repair, or overall requirements by units in the defense sector. Electronics. To deepen value addition in the consumer electronics sector, I propose to exempt basic customs duty on specified parts used in the manufacture of microwave ovens. Special economic zone. To address the concerns arising about utilization of capacity by manufacturing units in the special economic zones due to global trade disruptions, I propose as a special one-time measure to facilitate sales by eligible manufacturing units in SEZs to the domestic tariff area at concessional rates of duty. The quantity of such sales will be limited to a prescribed proportion of their exports. Necessary regulatory changes will be undertaken to operationalize the measures while ensuring level playing field for the units working in the DTA. Ease of living. To rationalize the customs duty structure for goods imported for personal use, I propose to reduce the tariff rate on all dutiable goods imported for personal use from 20% to 10%. To provide relief to patients, particularly those suffering from cancer, I propose to exempt basic customs duty on 17 drugs or medicines. I propose also to add 7 more rare diseases for the purposes of exempting import duties on personal imports of drugs, medicines, and food for special medical purposes used in their treatment. Customs process. India's role and share in the global trade is poised for a major leap in line with our ambition and journey towards Vikasit Bharat. In this regard, I propose many measures for custom processes to have minimal intervention for smoother and faster movement of goods and greater certainty to the trade. Trust-based systems. I propose to enhance duty deferral period for Tier 2 and Tier 3 authorized economic operators, known as AEOs, from 15 days to 30 days. I propose to provide eligible manufacturer importers the same duty deferral facility. This should encourage them to get themselves accredited as a full-fledged Tier 3 AEO in due course. To provide greater certainty and for better business planning, I propose to extend validity period of advance ruling binding on customs from the present 3 years to 5 years. In the spirit of the whole of government approach, Government agencies will be encouraged to leverage AEO accreditation for preferential treatment in clearing their cargo. Regular importers with trusted long-standing supply chains will be recognized in the risk system so that the need for verification of their cargo every time can be minimized. Export cargo using electronic sealing. Export cargo using electronic sealing will be provided through clearance from the factory premises to the ship. For import of goods not needing any compliance, filing of bill of entry by a trusted importer and arrival of goods will automatically notify customs for completing their clearance formalities. This will enable goods to be released immediately on arrival. The customs warehouse framework will be transformed into a warehouse operator-centric system with a self-declarations, electronic tracking, and risk-based audit. These reforms will move away from the current system of officer-dependent approvals and reduce transaction delays and compliance costs. Ease of doing business. Approvals required for cargo clearance from various government agencies will be seamlessly processed through a single and interconnected digital window by the end of the financial year. Processes involved in clearance of food, drugs, plant, and animal and wildlife products, accounting for about 70% of interdicted cargo, will be operationalized on this system by April 2026 itself. For goods not having any compliance requirement, clearance will be done by customs immediately after online registration is completed by the importer, subject to the payment of duty. Customs integrated system will be rolled out in 2 years as a single integrated and scalable platform for all customs processes. Utilization of non-intrusive scanning with advanced imaging and AI technology for risk assessment will be expanded in a phased manner with the objective to scan every container across all the major ports. New export opportunities to support Indian fishermen to fully harness the economic value of marine resources beyond our territorial waters. The following measures will be taken. A. Fish catch by an Indian fishing vessel in exclusive economic zone or on the high seas will be made free of duty. Landing of such fish on foreign port will be treated as export of goods. Safeguards will be put in place to prevent misuse during fish catch, transit, or transshipment. To support aspirations of India's small businesses, artisans, and startups to access global markets through e-commerce, I am pleased to announce complete removal of the current value cap of 10 lakh rupees per consignment on courier exports. In addition, handling of rejected and returned consignments will be improved with effective use of technology for identifying such consignments. I propose to revise provisions governing baggage clearance during international travel to address genuine concerns of passengers. The revised rules will enhance duty-free allowances in line with the present-day travel realities and provide clarity in temporary carriage of goods brought in or taken out. There are honest taxpayers who are willing to settle disputes by paying all their dues, but they get deterred due to negative connotation associated with penalty. They will now be able to close cases by paying an additional amount in lieu of penalty. Honorable Speaker, sir, with this, I commend the budget to this august House. Jai Hind. 1.5 hours.
आइटम नंबर 3 माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी.
Item number 2, sir.
3.
3. Sir, with your permission, I rise to lay on the table of the following statements under Section 3, 1 of the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act of 2003, medium-term fiscal policy cum fiscal policy strategy statement, and macroeconomic framework statement.
आइटम नंबर 4 माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी.
Sir, with your permission, I move for leave to introduce the Finance Bill 2026.
प्रश्न ये कि विधेयक को पुनर्स्थापित करने की अनुमति प्रदान की जाए. जो सदस्य इस पक्ष में हाँ गए, जो सदस्य विरोध में ना गए, मेरे विचार में निर्णय हाँ वालों के पक्ष में, हाँ वालों के पक्ष में अनुमति प्रदान की जाती है. माननीय मंत्री जी, अब विधेयक पुनर्स्थापित करें.
Sir, I introduce the bill.
माननीय सदस्यगण, आपको सूचित किया जाता है कि माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी के बजट भाषण की कॉपी पब्लिकेशन काउंटर पर ली जाती है. बजट भाषण और बजट से संबंधित दस्तावेज आपके मोबाइल फोन और मेंबर पोर्टल्स पर ही उपलब्ध है. सभा की कार्रवाई कल सोमवार दिनांक 2 फरवरी 2026 को प्राप्त 11 बजे तक के लिए स्थगित की जाती है.
Okay, well, markets, of course, taking it hard. You just heard the finance minister with the budget speech. There are two clear things which I think have come through. The net borrowing number for markets is largely in line with expectations, but the gross borrowing number, which has been put out, I think is spooking financial stocks a little bit. The second point, Lata, just 1 minute. On the equity taxation front, I just want to put out, there is a STT increase on options and futures, but the expectation that capital gains, perhaps there will be some kind of a relief, has not come through. Anant Narayan, before the speech, was telling us, well, raise STT in lieu of giving some relief on the capital gains. One has happened, the other has not happened. And I think the market is clearly disappointing. There is a lot of nuts and bolt announcements which have happened, especially on the taxation front. And I think we have experts joining in who will sort of, go through each of them. On the customs side, simplification, easing out of the process of filing, etc., etc. So we'll go through all of that. But I think at a headline level, there is a bit of a disappointment. Can't take away from that fact. Lata.
No, I completely take a point on STT, which is clearly, spooked the market. STT has come, but capital gains has not gone down.
I think Samir is
but
with us.
in terms of borrowing, that 17.2 need not worry people, because it's possible that 1 lakh crore will be through a switch or through a buyback, and therefore the effective net borrowing is only 16.2, because the net borrowing has come exactly in line with the market poll that we did at 11.7 lakh crore. So I don't think we should worry. 4.3 fiscal deficit also was as per expectation. Also, sectorally, we were expecting something for chemicals, and some of the chemical stocks are higher. There is some encouragement given to them, as well, some encouragement even given to exporters, textile exporters. But the buyback
is the clear positive. Samir is with us. Samir Arora, founder of Helios. Samir, thanks for joining in. First reaction?
First reaction is that the market will fall much more. I think we have to realize what the issue was. The issue is that we are underperforming like crazy in the world, and the world is not interested, and FIs are not interested. Tomorrow, I'm sure the currency will fall 1% more. There is no story to tell if on a Sunday our market goes down 2%. Because the first thing is that you can't just do STT increase because maybe options is bad, futures is bad. But you can't go out of line with what the reality is today, that India is getting highlighted as a poor stock market, not so much the real economy or whatever. And in that sense, these other things matter after 2 weeks, 4 weeks, but it's not easy to get back investors at this with this kind of.
Okay, Madhu is with us as well. Madhu, your first reaction?
I think, Prashant, there was budget is in, I would say, more or less in line with what was expected in terms of consolidation and fiscal numbers. The STT increase, as Samir is saying, is a bit disappointing. But I would say at the same time, the buyback tax being cut is a good positive lots of companies, I would say, would prefer now the buyback route versus the dividend route. So I think by and large, just it's in continuation of whatever was happening. The only real big highlight from my perspective, a lot of emphasis on long-term employment generation on various schemes. That's the only longer-term positive which I could pick up. But from a market perspective, I think this event will be over in 48 hours.
Yeah. No, would you agree, Madhu? Samir saying markets will fall more. Today there are no FIIs. Rupee perhaps under pressure again. Would you agree with that?
Not be unfortunately.
It may fall not only because of budget or disappointing because of budget. You know, generally we have been little out of favor.
Okay.
And Prashant, the spate of new issuance which are even planned this year as compared with even last year, that will also suck out a lot of liquidity. So markets are in a way not been very supportive from an India perspective, and that may continue.
How big is the STT increase, Madhu? If your team has been able to tell you on options, and we have those actual absolute numbers, but how large is the increase?
Prashant, it is not very big because it's not done on a cash market. It's there on the options in the future market. But from more than the number, Prashant, is a sentiment dampener, right? We are already struggling, and this is a kind of a little bit of sentiment dampener. Then it really hurting in that sense.
Samir, can we just get the buyback explained? Dinesh, Kanabar, buyback is going to be a big positive?
I think it's quite a bit positive. So until now, buyback was taxed in the hands of the recipient as normal income. We now have it being classified as capital gains for other than promoters. For promoters, if the promoter is a corporate, the overall capital gains tax will be 22.5%, and if it is individual, it will be 30%. So that's quite a bit welcome. Particularly small shareholders, buyback happening, being liable to capital gains tax is very, very welcome.
I think Madhu or somebody actually mentioned that it's good because otherwise it was being taxed as dividends in the hands of the taxpayers. Now, of course, it will be taxed at a concessional rate, 12.5% for minority and then 22 or 30, depending upon...
the government recognizing, well, what happened was perhaps not...
they moved from one length where tax was in the hands of the company. Company used to pay the buyback tax to removing it and saying it's now taxable in the hands of the taxpayer as dividend income. That was extreme. So if you were an owner, what happened to the loss that you were incurring?
So what happened is that there was a tax in the hands of the company. The corporate India represented that make it taxable in the hands of the recipient with an expectation to be capital gain. Be careful what you ask for. It got taxed as normal income. Now it's gone back to capital.
It's very positive.
Let me get in. Samir, I know you've given your, in that sense, your first initial thoughts, but some of this other stuff, buyback, and there's as Madhu was pointing out, long term, I mean, what is being laid out, maybe immediately what market was expecting has not happened. But do you think this kind of allays some of the disappointment?
We're not saying that what was expected has not come. This was unexpected and negative for no reason, because it is clear that we introduced STT in lieu of capital gains tax. Now the STT are increasing more and more, and and in an environment when the environment is clear that India last year underperformed markets by 20-30% in currency terms, even more maybe, and even this year just in like 30 days the currency has depreciated relative to US by 4-5% or something. I mean, in that context, this STT could have been delayed. Other things are broadly okay, but the markets are very sensitive to a few clean things. Okay, maybe there would have been no cut in capital gains tax. Okay, that even I didn't think much. But at this time when the market is already showing weakness, to add one more thing is not required. The long term, I agree. And that's why the beginning, the market itself was correctly interpreting the market rallied, because the long term things, they pressed all the right buttons in terms of new sectors, new things, education, tourism, and all their semiconductors, manufacturing, etc. But there's no need to randomly hurt the market at a time when the market is proving to be important both from a currency point and from the exit of PE guys or whatever, leading to negative overall FDI or investment. At that time it was not required at all.
On FDI, there is a positive in terms of those who invest in data centers. They're going to be tax exempt if they sell data outside up till 2047.
Yeah.
Some FDI should come.
Not only that. Sorry, please.
No, that's clearly a positive. I think we had all expected that data centers would be an area where government would, provide an opportunity for long-term investment. And by dating it through till 2047, they are clearly providing clarity and certainty. If data centers were to provide services to overseas users, then income is fully exempted. But they have not kind of limited it to saying only to global. When the original FTZ policies were given, you couldn't sell it to domestic. They've said you can also sell it to domestic through a local subsidiary. So I think that's positive.
Yeah, Prashant Khemka is also with us. Prashant, Samir not holding back. Your thoughts? What's your sense? What he said is interesting, and the way he put it, which is that it is not that what was expected did not come, but what has come was not expected, and that is the reason why markets are down sharply. 400 points now, 450. Prashant.
Sure, Prashant. So I think from a stock market perspective, the STT per se is not that. And Samir also pointed out it might be more sentimental. The STT on FNO may not be as much of a negative from a cash market perspective. But capital gains tax, there was some hope, even though I don't think that people put a very high probability on it. But if there was ever a time, then investors were expecting it might be the time that capital gains tax where India, in a way stands out amongst other emerging markets or other markets in general, there could be some hope for chances of bringing it in line with the global market. So that could be partly negative. Otherwise, I think from a stock market, from an investor perspective, there isn't a major negative or a major positive. It is continuation of what was going on in the past. Maybe there were expectations that given what's happening geopolitically with tariffs,
it'll be tough to do very much. Absolutely, Madhu. Let me come back to you. I know you have a team which is looking at this closely. Anything else which really stands out, which you want to highlight, Madhu?
I'll have to explain. Can't write it.
Prashant, I'll just take Samir's point.
Yeah.
One has to look at it from an overall balancing perspective. There is a lot which the government has done off budget. Let us say that 4 months back, the GST cut which was off budget, it came today. Along with the STT, it would have been treated as a big bang budget and it would have been considered as a very big positive. So I think a lot has happened even beyond budget. It is slightly disappointing, and to that extent may have been avoided given the overall sentiment today. But I don't think this is like a make or break point from Indian market.
No, I don't think that is what Samir is saying.
And the second thing, if you once will...
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm also saying. That, it's a knee-jerk reaction because there is some amount of also expectation which was being built up from a long-term capital gains perspective in the market. So that is also kind of discounting today as a reaction. But when we look into details, I think there's a lot which is being done in this budget, I would say, for various sectors, which is really beneficial from a medium long-term perspective. So in my understanding, from market perspective, we are back to basics. Look at individual ideas, do your bottom-up work, and that's the India story.
Okay. Let me look at one more positive, perhaps. Mr. Kanabar, NRIs have been permitted to invest in PMSs, and also the tax has been lowered.
So 2-3 things. First is NRIs have been permitted to invest through PMS and also make direct investment. They were always permitted. That the limit has gone up from 5% to 10% per NRI, and the overall aggregate limit has gone up from 10 to 24. Okay. Practically, I can tell you that we have faced this limitation when we are advising clients, and therefore this will open up an avenue. Okay. So it's quite a positive. Maybe one other thing while we are on this from a tax perspective, there are just too many things, but just one issue is on MAT. So what we are seeing here on minimum alternate taxes, government wants people to move from the old tax regime to the new tax regime. So what they have said is, if you had an accumulated MAT, which was prompting people not to go to the new tax regime, you'll be permitted to transfer, set off in a calibrated manner, and going forward, there is no MAT credit. So people will move to the new tax regime. But lots of other changes on tax side.
Okay.
You know, at one
that is the way we have to interpret no MAT credit
going forward.
going forward.
Going forward.
Okay.
But that's only for companies who are in the old regime.
Okay.
Most of the companies have already migrated to the new regime, and the thing which was prohibiting them, which was accumulated credit, is now permitted, but to be absorbed at a quarter each year.
Got it. So not to worry so much about that. Shireen, you want to come in on any thoughts?
No, Lata, just to sum it up, I think, if you had been listening to my panel of experts here, and these, as I pointed out, are the budget makers. They've been responsible for putting budgets together in the last few years. And they were very clear that don't expect any reversal reduction as far as capital gains was concerned. Don't expect anything on STT. Nobody went as far as to expect a hike as far as STT is concerned, which is what happened. But they were very measured in that expectation of any kind of a reversal, rollback, relief on long-term capital gains tax, short-term capital gains tax, and so on and so forth. But the overarching theme, Lata, as we've been pointing out, and I'm going to get my experts to comment on that, this is a budget that is reacting not just to the here and now. It's a budget that's now laying out the priorities, the focus areas for the next 5 to 10 years. Nuclear power, I told you that we're going to see a mention of that, and that's exactly what the government has done on the electronic manufacturing sector, on AI, on data centers, and so on and so forth. So there is plenty there that is likely to play out in time, but the market, of course, reacting to what the market will react to, which is the here and now. But let me get our panel of experts to get right into it. Mr. Bajaj, you were absolutely clear. Don't expect any relief on LTCG. But were you expecting an STT hike, which is what has come in for futures and options?
So I think that has come basically because there is an attempt, there's a lot of news of people actually losing a lot of money there. So something was done in the intervening period. So I think that is a measure perhaps to control that, and not so much as a measure of raising revenues.
Raising revenues, my hunch was they would revive disinvestment, at least the disinvestment target, 80,000 crores versus 33,000 crores. What do you make of that?
So I would say that there are some things which are in the offing. For example, the IDBI disinvestment should happen, and the money should come in the financial year 26-27. And also maybe LIC's follow-on issue might happen. So I think 80,000 crores is something which is very reasonable, seeing these two things in context. So I think the government has been very, very conservative on that aspect.
Conservative still, but a higher, much higher target that we've seen in the last few years. Mr. Chakrabarti, from a overarching standpoint, what stood out for you as far as this budget is concerned?
Couple of things. At least my expectation was to retain stability. So if you see across the budget, there has not been a change to radically move from one end to the other. It reflects a government which is very matured now, has been there in power for long. They're continuing with the agenda of infrastructure. If you see, NIIF, Credit Guarantee Scheme for Infrastructure. So those are stability measures. They are provided for all the major steps that has been taken, especially towards technology, data center, and so on and so forth. So there, special impetus has been given. Again, on the infrastructure side for high-speed rails between major cities which are growth center. And those growth center, if you see in the scheme of things, have been recognized.
Yes.
And I also see a major thing, I hope it turns out to really push the economy, is also this high-level committee on banking for inclusion and for consumer protection. I guess that is the
She also used the words of improve and efficiency and scale for Viksit Bharat. What is the India banking sector requirement? In that context, do you believe this talk around consolidation, etc., or perhaps even hiking the FDI limit for PSBs? I mean, some of those measures may be part of now what this high-level committee looks at?
This committee, one has to see ultimately its terms of reference. Beyond FDI is already at 75%. Making it 100% will perhaps increase a little bit. It's more important that the consumer confidence is retained. Of late, those digital arrests and all those things had dented it a little bit. And not that the banking itself, however, an overall thing, and FM had referred to it. So I guess referring to consumer as such, I see it as a very, very positive step.
Okay.
And also the credit guarantee for infrastructure.
Right.
And she has also talked about, this is my favorite, the bond market.
Yes, she has talked about the bond market. But Mr. Armani, let me ask you, sir, on the defence side, it's I think gone up to about 5.69 lakh crore rupees. We were hoping that she would talk about it in the budget, but she hasn't. So, on balance, your take on defence?
I just got confirmation that overall budget has grown by around 21%.
21%.
And the Capex also has grown by 24%. This is huge. As expected, the defense allocations have gone up substantially, and most of it will go into...
And the 21% is BE to BE?
Yeah.
Okay. So just to clarify, the defense allocation is up 21% BE versus BE. So if you do BE versus RE, it will be a different number, but BE versus BE up 21%, which is exactly what you had said.
Yeah. This will certainly boost the preparedness of our military services, and I hope the defense industry will also get a great fillip through this. Apart from the allocations directly, there are other important announcements made today. One is the defense corridors, which will get boost from the 7 sunrise sectors, especially semiconductor sector. They will help the defense production to be seamless. And also supply chain problems will be sorted out because of that.
Okay, so that's the defense corridors is the other announcement. Some disappointment there. You were expecting customs duty rationalization. That doesn't seem to have been announced, but there's a lot of exemptions that have come in for specific sectors, for specific components and so on and so forth.
Yeah, Shireen, so yes, the big ticket customs rate rationalization has not come through. But part of the reason could be that the government is banking more now on FTAs, which are also providing a huge opportunity to initiatives like China Plus One and others, which other trading partners are looking at. But there are some changes on expected lines also. For example, the change for SEZ units supplying into the RTA, I think that's a good move.
But many caveats attached to that, and what is that time period for that one-time window is something that we require clarity on as well.
So we'll need to see the fine print to decipher that. But that's a welcome move in any case, and I think it will help utilize the unutilized infrastructure in SEZs. The other thing which we were expecting, which has come through, is a lot of measures on trade facilitation.
Right.
So the AU scheme has been liberalized, advanced ruling, the duration has been extended. And thirdly, which is also an important move, is that the single window remit has been extended to other border agencies. So I think these are also important in their own right.
And as we speak, gentlemen, the markets are coming off their intraday lows. Before I, get Prashant to give us a quick rundown of what's happening in the markets, let me bring in a quick first comment from Anisha, the CEO of the Mahindra Group. Anisha, plenty there for different sectors. Your first take on Budget 2026.
Shireen, good afternoon. It's an excellent budget. It focuses on sustaining economic growth and manufacturing in particular. For India to grow at a rapid pace, manufacturing has to take center stage. Viksit Bharat talks about manufacturing being 25% of the economy, which means it has to grow 16 times in the next 22 years. And the budget puts in a lot of detail that will help manufacturing, including infrastructure, and that's a huge boost. Atmanirbharta is another key factor in the budget, something that we need given the volatility in the world around us. And specifically, the rare earth corridor is a great step in that direction. And most importantly, I would say, is inclusion. With the focus on SMEs, they have to be an integral part of driving economic growth. The focus on small and marginal farmers, on youth, on capacity building, on women. So overall, Shireen, headlines from our standpoint is just an outstanding budget.
An outstanding budget as per Anisha. But Anish, what does this now mean as far as business is concerned, specifically for the Mahindra Group? You've got companies across those diverse sectors. What does it do? Does it move the needle for you across your businesses?
It helps keep us on the path we are on, because we are on a very rapid growth path. And as we look at India becoming more competitive from a manufacturing standpoint, it allows us to make in India for the world. and attracts other companies to come into India as well, which is excellent for the Indian economy. So that is a huge boost. As we talk about taking leadership in hospitality, that augurs very well for a hospitality business. Our logistics business is very well placed. And overall, we see multiple sectors benefiting from this budget.
Okay, Anish, I'll come back to you in just a second. Prashant, what's happening with the markets coming off their lows?
You know, off the lows by 100, but we were off the lows by 200, and we've given back that 100. So it's a pretty, and budget days are, the range is anything between 1 to 5% over if you look at the last 7 budgets. And I don't think this is turning out to be that big on the extreme end, but this is big enough. That what's, of course, taken a bite out of things is that STT hike, and we put out the actual percentage increase. On futures, the STT hike is 150%, and options, STT hike is 50%. And of course, there is no relief on the capital gains front. It's not as if there was realistically an expectation that capital gains tax will be lowered, but the STT hike was not expected. And I think that is why, we got this kind of reaction. I think if you just look at names like Angel, BSE, the entire capital market space is down sharply. They all up about 5-6% from the lows, but even then, 8, 9, 10%, depending on what you look at. The capital market index will give you that story at this point in time. So 330 points lower on the Nifty is what you have at this point in time. I think Prashant Khemka is with us still. I'm not sure if Samir and Madhu are there, but Prashant, if you want to just quickly come in with anything else you're picking up, anything else worth highlighting from an investor point of view.
Well, just quickly, I would say to my mind, the STT hike on FNO is not much of a negative for investors, certainly not for us from an overall market perspective. Yes, if you're investors in capital market, but intermediaries, like you mentioned, brokers and all, that segment may get affected. But it's a better way to, regulate participation of retail investors, get some revenues for the exchequer, rather than coming up with other non-revenue generating measures barring such activity. So that, to my mind, is not something that is bothering the market. Yes, the capital gains tax, to some extent, there was expectation. That is bothering. And second is absence of anything, that is, that in light of what's going on the tariff front, there were certain expectations that this budget could have a step function kind of, announcements on a variety of aspects that would boost growth, economic growth, whereas this is more of a continuity budget. What has been policies that have been working for last 10, 11 years, which have given us robust growth of 6-odd%. It is continuing. It's a stock-taking budget. Okay, we've accomplished this, and these are all policies that have worked well. Let's continue with them.
Yeah, let me bring Sajid into the conversation. And as we do that, let me also give you some more numbers. The railway sector allocation. So if you take a look at the railway budget, up 10% B to B, that is the allocation as far as railways are concerned. RBI dividend at over 3 lakh crore rupees. That is the number there as far as the RBI dividend is concerned. Sajid Chinoy, one other number that we haven't put a lot of attention on is the 16th Finance Commission. As we reported here on CNBC TV18, the devolution staying at 41%. But what about the borrowing number, Sajid? Any concerns there that the market is picking up on?
So I think the market was expecting a smaller borrowing number, but there are two known unknowns here, Shireen. One is whether there'll be a switch by the RBI, which is also what the market was building in, and there is no clarity, and that should bring the number down. Secondly, if you at first glance, if you look at the borrowing breakdown, what you see is quite a lot of conservatism when it comes to small savings schemes. So if small savings tend to be higher than what has been budgeted, that creates the possibility that in the second half of the year there could be lower borrowing. But yes, at first blush, the gross borrowing numbers higher, and I think markets are hoping that there'd be some switch from the RBI. I'll just make one more quick point on the broader math, Shireen. So no real surprises there. Some had expected a deficit of 4.2. We're close to that. We're at 4.3. I think the key is going to be nominal GDP, because this year we're clocking 8. Next year the assumption is 10. If we do achieve a 10% nominal next year, then the gross tax assumptions at 10.4 are not very ambitious. If nominal GDP is lower, then that will take some doing. One final point I'll make is on Capex. If the RE numbers are achieved, Capex growth will be just 4%, because the base last year was higher. And so if you take the budgeted number on the base, it was 4. Next year's number is much higher at 11.5. But a compound annual growth rate over 2 years is closer to 7 to 8%. And I think the bigger message is, that the center has done what it has to on public capex, and now it's important that private capex pick up to fill in some of that gap.
Yeah, and I think that has been made very clear by the government that it perhaps has reached its peak in terms of being able to enhance that capex number, the point that you're making, Sajid. Let me also bring in Debashish Panda, former chairman of the IRDA and also a budget maker. Now Kartavya Bhavan, you can't call it North Block anymore. Mr. Panda, your big headline from Budget 2026.
I think it's an outstanding, excellent budget, particularly when we are navigating through very, very difficult circumstances, uncertainties, challenges. What interests me is that the finance minister mentioned about the structural reforms, which will continue and which are very necessary. The other big thing that she talked about is a stable and a very robust and resilient financial sector. And in that context, she even spoke about, setting up a high-level committee to look at the banking sector in the country and how to take it forward in terms of aligning it with the vision of Viksit Bharat 2047. So I think that itself is a big message and a signal that maybe there'll be a lot of new things we will see in the banking system, bigger banks, more consolidation maybe, or even allow the corporates enhance the FDI. All of that could be possible. And actually, we need a strong banking sector to achieve the larger goal of Viksit Bharat by 2047. And then, the capital expenditure spending on infrastructure, as we all expected and we discussed the other day, has been given the priority. And what she has done is that she has taken care of each and every sector which will benefit. The MSMEs in particular are being given a lot of attention with a variety of interventions. Then, of course, the rare earth corridor, the rail corridor, all of that, again, I think will give a big fillip to also position India as a leader in the global value chain as well.
Yes, many measures there, 10,000 crore rupee fund for SMEs, and of course, many linkages to the TREADS platform and so on and so forth in continuation of the earlier measures. But I want to get all of you gentlemen to comment on what the government has attempted to do to try and draw in flows. And Mr. Panda, I'll start by asking you the changes to the investment limit made for PROIs to be able to invest in Indian equities, and some of the other measures, for instance, capital gains relief for people who want to do data centers and so on and so forth, cloud services till 2047. The long-term strategy of this budget to try and draw in flows and investors. What would you say were the big highlights there? Mr. Panda?
Yeah. So I thought the question was for Mr. Chenoy, so I lost. Could you please recap the question?
No, I was just saying the measures to try and draw in foreign investors and foreign flows. Does the budget deliver on that?
I think much more needs to be done in terms of, I think the previous speaker spoke about the markets, the stock markets, how capital gain reduction could have actually been a big benefit to the stock markets in terms of attracting more, money into that segment. But having said that, the FDI has recently been opened up in the insurance sector. I think the structural reforms would also look at opening up in other sectors wherever necessary, of course, keeping those safeguards. But clearly a signal towards, attracting more capital, whether it is in the form of FDI or FPI or in the form of equity. So all of that is necessary for the country to grow at the rate at which the projections have been made.
Interrupting you, sir. My apologies, I'm interrupting you because we have the first government reaction now coming in after the finance minister has delivered the budget. The CEO of the Niti Aayog, BVR Subramaniam, joins us. Mr. Subramaniam, many thanks for joining us. Several sectors being addressed, several measures being taken. Of course, the thread of continuity running through the course of the budget. Your highlights and what you believe the maximum impact is likely to be on account of Budget 26.
This is a budget of a middle-income country. That's the first thing. And this is a budget for Viksit Bharat. And you can see very large elements, and the finance minister laid that out very, very early on. She talked about three kartavyas. The three kartavyas are for economic growth, aspirations, and inclusivity across regions, individuals, communities. And within that, I think if you should see the three budgets of the last year and the year before as a package deal. The budget 2 years ago was all about jobs and employment as the key focus with supportive things. The previous budget was a lot of manufacturing. If there is one big area of focus in this budget, it is services. So if I was to give a name to this budget, it is a services budget and continuing the good work of the previous two budgets, which is manufacturing and jobs and employment.
Let me double down on that. Why do you believe that this is a services budget, sir? Because there was a lot in the budget to also try and push the manufacturing sector more. What specifically makes you believe that this is a services budget?
Okay, just wait for the key highlights of the budget come out. The maximum number of pages are devoted to services, number one. Number two, just let me explain what all are there. First of all, the Prime Minister has announced a high-level standing committee, which is not a one-time committee, a standing committee on services. That is expected to drive a whole host of services reforms. So unlike a manufacturing mission, services actually requires a large number of issues to be tackled over 30-40 ministries. So she said that she'll be creating a standing committee. Two, look at all the sectors that she's been covering. I mean, in services, she has talked about the entire health sector, 5 medical hubs, medical tourism. In education, she's talked about 5 university cities. What are these university cities? They are education hubs where you have universities, you've got research parks, you've got manufacturing, all in those places. She's given a lot of attention to tourism. She's given a lot of attention to Ayush, 3 All India Institutes of Ayush. She's talked about sports and talked about a Khelo India mission. She's talked about the orange economy and the Indian Institute of Creative Technology and setting up these creativity centers in 50,000 schools and 500 colleges. All this, I think, put together makes this a very, very, very strong budget pushing the services sector. And it's not that manufacturing doesn't get important. We are building on the work of the previous budget as far as manufacturing is concerned. The National Manufacturing Mission was announced in the previous budget. It is in the final stages and should get operationalized any moment from as we speak. And there you have biopharma, which is an add-on. You have the electronic component scheme, which is a build-up on an earlier scheme which was announced last year. It was hugely successful. She's expanded it from 25,000 crores to 40,000 crores. There is a mention of a container program, huge emphasis on labor-intensive textiles, sports goods, and you can see the manufacturing builds on what was announced last time, and the new emphasis and focus is on services. We are not talking about health, education, etc. for servicing our population alone now. We are talking about making India a global services hub and she gave a very clear target, 10% of global services output to come from India. That's the goal she's laid out.
Yes, and that is why, in your words, this is a services budget. The finance minister laying out that aspiration of 10% of global services to come from India. But on manufacturing specifically, sir, I want you to put on your former Commerce Secretary hat as well. The expectation was that we would see a significant further import duty rationalization. That has not been the case. There are, of course, specific exemptions to specific sectors, for instance, nuclear power, cloud service providers, and so on and so forth. Do you believe that that hasn't been done on account of the fact that various FTAs are being inked and are at various stages of being implemented?
Look, we already now have FTAs with almost, 1/3 or more of the world economy. We've got FTA with EU, we have FTAs anyway with Japan, etc. We have FTA with UK. There is a deal in the pipeline with the United States. The FTAs are anyway going around cutting tariffs. The residual tariffs are now left with countries with whom we do not want to or may not want to get into FTAs. Having said that, look at the amount of time she has spent on the indirect taxes part. There's been a lot of tinkering. They're all removing pain points. Take electronic component. For warehouses, she's cut down the tax structure to 2%. She's allowed greater import for a large number of export-intensive sectors like leather, textiles. She's allowed, I think, 5% of their export value to be imported for a lot of other inputs which are there. So I think there's a lot of tinkering that has gone on to help manufacturing as far as inputs are concerned. And on the direct taxes side also, you'll see that a lot of direct taxes are targeting foreign direct investment. People are, the word may or may not appear too often, but you look at the safe harbor rules, the expansion of the safe harbor to companies up to 2,000 crore turnover and fixing the safe harbor at a lower rate of 15% actually is targeting the global capability centers. 1,600 GCCs are going to benefit from that safe harbor provision. They've also decriminalized a lot of income tax provisions in an act which is yet to come into place from 1st of April. So that's actually a very, very forward-looking step she's taken. And then she's also reduced the safe harbor for people who are going to take up presumptive taxation. So I think, and even for SCZ, she's given a one-off relaxation in being able to sell in domestic tariff areas. So rather than, the big things have already been done. What needs to be done is these minor pain points, and she's going around removing it. And the other thing is, she has talked about setting up a committee to look at the forex debt borrowing rules and regulations. So we have so far been focusing only on FPI, which is equity. She's focusing on debt as well. So as that committee comes out with its results, you will see an improvement in the foreign investment flows into the country also.
No, very important points, and I think that point on safe harbor is very well made, Mr. Subramaniam. This has been a point of friction, and I think the finance minister has alluded to some of those concerns and tried to allay them in this budget. But Mr. Subramaniam, there was another mention by the finance minister, and I'm wondering if you have any more clarity on what this restructuring of PFC and RFC could potentially mean, because those were the two companies that she listed out that are going to be up for restructuring. Any idea, sir, on what the plan is?
You see, I think that we will need a bit more clarity as we go along, but the way I look at it is one of the challenges of Viksit Bharat is also going to be sustainability. So there is going to be a lot of retooling of our energy sector, and the retooling of the energy sector requires a lot of green and climate finance. So this green finance, if it has to come through, it has to come through existing financial institutions rather than setting up new institutions. So when she talks about this, the way I would read it is enabling these companies to become the funnels for getting a lot of green finance, climate finance into India, into the energy sector, the transport sector, because climate change in India is going to be resolved largely through electrification of entire energy system. And who are the big financing agencies as far as electrification is concerned? REC and PFC. I think that's the way I would see that. I'd like to draw your attention to one more point, which people may or not. She talked about city economic regions. This is actually the work of Nifty. Nifty has prepared city economic region plans for Mumbai, Varanasi, for Visakhapatnam, for Surat, and we are going to release one on Bhubaneswar. 7-8 more are in the pipeline, and she said, I will give 5,000 crores for city economic region in a challenge mode. This will then enable these cities to actually compete and become global cities like New York, London. So we can have Bombay becoming a New York, we can have Surat becoming, say, Amsterdam, you can have Visakhapatnam becoming a Singapore. I think that is the intent behind the city economic region announcement. The 7 areas of focus she announced in the beginning had city economic regions as one of them. So if this budget has to be remembered, A, services, removing a lot of pain points in taxation, both for foreign investment flows and promote manufacturing, particularly for exports. And the third is focusing on critical infrastructure in various parts, that is cities as economic regions. She's talked about 7 high-speed rail corridors, which means the bullet trains are going to stay. We're also going to produce bullet trains in the long run in the country. And the third is for Purvodaya, for the eastern region, a large number of announcements, and the most important one, a new dedicated freight corridor. Dankuni, please read it as Calcutta. Dankuni is the point at one end. up to Surat. That's east-west. We have Delhi-Mumbai, we have Delhi-Calcutta. She's completing the triangle Delhi-Calcutta with a lot of other projects going with that. This is going to give a big boost to industrial and other services growth in eastern India.
No, absolutely. You very comprehensively summed up many of the other important announcements that came in from the finance minister, of course, including things like a 10,000 crore rupee allocation for container building. That is another sector that has been identified. Also for ship repair, another sector that's been identified. Mr. Subramaniam, we will come back to you, sir. As we see that manufacturing competitiveness report finally being made public. But thank you very much for your first reaction here on CNBC TV 18 on the big day, the budget day, for comprehensively summing up Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman's 9th budget. Thanks very much. Lata, I know you've been waiting by for a quick clarification as far as the borrowing number is concerned.
Yeah, actually, the bank stocks are down and they're all worried that 17.2 lakh crore was not something the market was prepared for. It was outer limit 17, but, our own poll was 16.2 lakh crore, with several people expecting even lower. So that has rattled the market. Now, in the past, when we've had higher small savings, a part of that money has been used, even when it is not announced in the budget, for buybacks later in the year. So if, some 80,000 crores, 1 lakh crore is done by way of buybacks, this 17.2 may not be borrowed and it may be closer to our poll figure of 16.2. The market will rest assured. But at the moment, there's no such guarantee. So when you meet the Revenue Secretary later on, perhaps this kind of a clarification will help. The 17.2 is disturbing the market. But all other numbers are extremely healthy. Only 10% of nominal GDP growth assumed. The market was prepared for 10.5 as well. The GDP will be recast. We may get a larger GDP number. So all those upsides are still left and the bond market need not worry. But at the moment, these points are 17.2 is a bit of a worry, and that's casting a bit of a dampener on bank stocks, NBFC stocks. But there are positives for the rupee. Not now, but in the longer term FDI flows for data centers and, other advantages given. Mr. Kanabar, if you can quickly summarize that.
So, three things. First is the safe harbor, 15.5%. And while it is restricted to those with an income of up to 2,000 crores, it's a very good precedent.
For GCCs.
For GCCs, IT-enabled services, everybody, a good thing. Data center right up to 2047, foreign income totally exempt. If you are rendering services locally, use of Indian subsidiary, let the subsidiary pay tax on their profits, but overall foreign company not liable to tax. And finally, on toll manufacture, tax holiday for 5 years. All three are very, very welcome.
Which explains why ACEMS is higher, because it's a tool manufacturing company. We now have Nilesh Shah of Kotak AMC and Navneet Munot, the CEO of HDFC AMC, joining us. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Nilesh, the STT has killed the market's joy for now. 20%. But your first thoughts?
So undoubtedly, Lata, STT increases beyond expectations of the market. But in some sense, it is the syntax of the market. 9 out of 10 retail investors were losing money. The benefits was mostly going to the HFTs. Undoubtedly, government had to take some step. We can only pay that STT and capital gain. STT was introduced in lieu of capital gain. With increased STT, the Honorable Finance Minister may look to reconsider capital gains taxation. But one important thing of this budget, the proposed capital expenditure at 12,10,000 crore is more than the net market borrowing program of 11,70,000 crore. I think this is first time in my life I am seeing that capital expenditure is more than the net market borrowing. I hope one day we'll be able to see a scenario where capital expenditure is more than net market borrowing as well as small savings.
I just had a question.
Well, even last year, the difference was not very much. I think it was about 10,000 crore. Net market borrowing also was about 11 lakh crore last year. And we had expenditure, Capex expenditure above 11 lakh crore. But go ahead.
No, I just want Mr. Kanabar, there's a question which is coming in. STT hike is only on equities, not commodities, right?
It's only equities.
Only equities.
Only equities.
Yeah, she said futures and options.
Yeah,
no, but on futures,
and commodities have options as well.
Yes. No, it's only on
not on commodities. It is only on equities. So we
also, they've just clarified that any interest that you pay to earn dividend income or mutual fund income will now not be allowed as a deduction.
So they had a 20% expenditure allowed by way of interest
That's
on the dividend income. That's gone.
So that's the other reason capital markets may be getting a little spooked.
Okay.
Because
actually,
no
I
deduction.
think the correction came from Delhi, and we have flashed it. It's not for commodities.
Okay. Sorry, could you just repeat that once again?
So today, if you have dividend income, if you borrow money and invest in a stock and you get dividend income, or you borrow money and invest in a mutual fund, and you get income from the mutual fund, the interest that you pay was allowed as a deduction up to a point.
Up to 20% of that dividend.
Now it's been removed.
Is that a big change?
Well, for those who are interested in passive income and who borrow to earn passive income, for them it's now no longer a option available.
Okay.
Well, to get back to markets, Navneet is waiting by. Thank you, Navneet. Any salve on a slightly wounded stock market sentiment?
It's listed and unlisted both.
Don't go by the immediate reaction. Markets are spooked because of the STT, but I think overall, what she mentioned in the first paragraph, reform over rhetoric, action over ambivalence, and people over populism, I think I would have summarized in a similar manner, but she herself said before presenting the budget. So I'm in a glide path towards lower debt to GDP, continued focus on infrastructure, which includes digital, physical, social, continue to, the ease of doing business, improving the quality of life to make the most of the demographic dividend. I think all of them are structurally positive, and particularly on the buyback, because all of us, Lata, we have been discussing that the cash is getting piled up in the corporate balance sheet. So either they do the Capex, which I think some of the tax incentives on data center and few other things should spur that, or you have maybe a way for corporates to use that cash and it comes back into the circulation, which can help the economy. So I'm pretty positive. Of course, I think there were more expectations on capital gains and to support the capital market, but we have to take that in stride.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Actually, it's quite possible that, the positives are going to flow later. Investment in data centers. This is not going to come overnight, but the negative STT hits now. So, to that extent, the market is a little worried about the short-term negative, and it's quite possible the safe harbor that Mr. Kanabar mentioned on GCCs. All this could mean more services investments flowing into GCCs soon. I'm extremely gratified by the fact that aggressive assumptions have not been made on nominal GDP growth or on taxes. Therefore, perhaps extra borrowing will not happen. The borrowing, if anything, will be lower. Shireen, anything more to add from your guests?
I'm going to get my guests for a quick comment, but I wanted to get Nilesh since we do have him. Nilesh, in the morning when you were with us, you said you were hoping for a Digi Yatra, a frictionless entry for both domestic and foreign investors. Has the finance delivered a Digi Yatra?
I think it is Digi Yatra in initial phase where there will be some glitches and some hiccups. As Navneet mentioned, a lot of proposals have been talked about for investment, but we finally need to get it executed. So let me say this is the first phase of Digi Yatra. There will be some hiccups, but you'll have to persist with it.
No, absolutely. We do have to persist with it. Let me get my wrap-up comments from our budget editors who've been patiently with us through the course of this month. Mr. Bajaj, let me start by asking you, on balance, if you look at the budget math, you look at the budget numbers, this government has delivered on its budget math. So how does it fare on that front? And on the intent and direction of reforms, what would you have to say?
So I would say on the budget numbers, the government has been very careful of giving the right numbers, which was a blame that the media would put on the government a few years back, which is not the case now. And if you see the growth in the total expenditure, the revenues, and even if you look at the fiscal deficit and the ambition that they've shown on debt to GDP is very, very limited. And I think on all these things, the government needs a pat on its back that it has not played around and tried to show in the budget something very nice picture, and at the end of the year, it doesn't come out to be true. I think what it has said, it can only improve from what it has said and not go lesser than that.
And on reforms and the direction, the path forward?
So reforms, I think, is now a continuous process, as the government and the PM has been saying that. So we've had the labor reforms, we've had the nuclear bill going through. I think it is a process which has been mentioned in this budget. For example, these two aspects I'd like to call out. One is the, which your Bombay guest said, on data centers and GCCs.
Yes.
These were two major demands. They are leading to a lot of employment, a lot of investment into the country. And these things were the real pain points for them. And I think it's a great step on the tax authorities to do that.
Absolutely, a good step there to allay those concerns. Mr. Johri, on balance, your big highlight of what this budget could mean for the economy.
I think on the indirect tax front, I would again call out manufacturing resilience. They've picked up on sectors that were affected by tariff tantrums, particularly labor-intensive ones. You have leather, you have textiles for which relief has been given. Also, futuristic and new age kind of industries where relief has been given. Some element of relief for climate change, nuclear energy, for example, has been given. Those projects have been given. So overall, I mean, the trust is fine. They've not upset the apple cart.
They haven't upset the apple cart. The final word to you, Mr. Chakrabarti. How do you walk away from our budget headquarters today?
Well, as one sees, it's very realistic budget. It carries on the assumption on the tax front worries me a little bit because it's 7.8% B&B, if the numbers that I see are correct. I guess perhaps that assumes some lower aggregate demand.
Okay.
And as you say, industry instead of heavy lifting is just doing lifting. I wish it does the lifting at least. And the demand on LTCG and STT goes away. Because that leads to, and buyback is also a very good step, because that money should actually go by way of dividend if they don't have money to spend, or actually put it in projects. Otherwise, a lot of shareholder money then is taken up by promoters and leads to inequality in the entire setup, which is a major concern, has been addressed. So it's a structural impact that makes on the overall inequality in the system. So in a sense, a very positive and right step. And if you ask me, as I had mentioned before, this high-level committee on banking, on the manufacturing side, on the infrastructure side, Capex has been retained up to the level that could possibly be retained. And on debt side, yes, it's been kept within the limit. I always expected a glide path to be sharper, but however, there are real exigencies and expediencies.
But thank you so much, Mr. Chakrabarti, Mr. Johri, and Tarun Bajaj for joining us here on CNBC TV18 through the course of the budget month and for being our budget editors. Appreciate your time. Let's go back to the markets now. Prashant.
Shireen, 170 lower, which means that, yes, there is slowly a bid emerging at lower levels. It has been there. And we've cut our losses in half. We're down 400 plus actually at the day's low, and we're down a lot lesser. Capital market stocks, etc. After the initial shock, after the initial impact, they're also all coming back. But remember, this is only domestic investors today, right? I mean, there is no FII in the market, no FPI in the market. So will that make a difference? In what way? I think there is one viewpoint, Samir Arora earlier telling us that. And of course, there is the other viewpoint that this is going to be a 48-hour thing, like many budgets have been in the past, and then we kind of sort of start to move away. Just to Mr. Kanabar, if I can ask you to just summarize, to your mind, right? I mean, directionally, what does this budget tell you, and what will stay with us beyond the 48 hours?
From a pure tax perspective, if I may tell you, Prashant, the new bill has just coming into law from 1st April, and we already have 90 amendments to that. Fortunately, all of them are very, very positive. Lot of simplification. So the TCS rate going down from 5 and 20% to just 2%, very, very welcome. Lower TDS rate to be automatic. You don't need to go to a tax officer and apply. One very interesting thing, which was on voluntary disclosure for foreign assets. So most of the software companies have people who go overseas, work there, get ESOPs, come back, and maybe they have not declared those ESOPs inadvertently, whatever. You now have to pay just 30% tax and move on with life. So again, very, very simplification, very welcome.
I mean, this would apply to, say, if you're working in India, say, for example, for a foreign bank, and you get ESOPs of the foreign bank.
No, other way around. Yeah, it could apply to any foreign asset.
But that would be typically declared, right? No, from if you're a working professional.
Okay. That people who go overseas for 2-3 years and have left something behind. We have seen examples where people have come back and have not declared whatever options they've got overseas.
Okay.
So those are the ones.
Sorry, Prashant, just to
That CDMO, I feel that is important because many of the companies are APIs, you said, are in CDMOs. Ashok, you want to clarify which companies could benefit?
Yeah. So, the legislation that seems to have got announced is that toll manufacturing will now get a 5-year tax exemption. So we have lots of companies in chemical, specialty chemical and pharma sectors that actually are now what we call CDMO producers, where they manufacture or develop products really for global companies, whether it is APIs or other products.
Okay.
Currently, they're doing it as a part of their existing entity. I mean, ACOMS is just one example of that. But there could be other companies like PI Industries.
Many of them.
Many of them, particularly in the chemical sector, specialty chemical sector. Now, ideally, what they would do is set up a separate subsidiary to do their export toll manufacturing. And if they do that, subject to seeing what the fine print says, then that income will be tax exempt for 5 years. Today, they're paying full tax on that. They're paying 25%
It becomes competitive in that.
It becomes a competitive investment. In some sense, it may be coming out of the tariff imposition and saying, what do we need to do to make our local companies competitive? But it's a very smart suggestion.
Actually, I wanted to toss that to Nilesh. Nilesh, we are seeing some of the pharma companies and the CDMO companies doing well. Is this a hidden positive which the market's not noticing and it'll be positive for them?
Undoubtedly. You can always trust Ashok Bhai to bring out hidden gems. And I'm sure this is something market will notice for the pharma and CDMO space. Anyway, they have a positive momentum. And this will increase the post-tax profit in the hands of shareholders.
Okay. Navneet, any gem you noticed on these lines? I mean, pharma is doing well. Some of the CDMO companies could, if they, differentiate their exports and their domestic sales. You see any positives for any companies? I mean, buyback also is been made a little more attractive.
I think it's one balanced, beautiful budget. The big and I mean, global environment doesn't give us the flexibility to be really big and bold. I think we have to navigate the environment cautiously. But at the same time, I think it's been quite bold in terms of continuing the path of reforms. There's a lot of minutes spent on tourism in various ways, whether it's health tourism, medical tourism, whether the cultural and the spiritual tourism. I think we underestimate the potential of that, even from a job creation perspective. And also, I think the data center, it can really be very big. Data centers require power, land.
Navneet, I just have a question there. I mean, this data center, I was just thinking, right? If you are, say, for example, a Meta or a Google, right? Would you, and everybody's careful about data privacy, etc. Would they store their data in India for global customers?
Of course, I think we need that sovereignty and we need that, over a period of time to get these people and compel them for data localization, whether it's the sovereign or even the private sector. Over a period of time, we need sovereignty on this and must ensure that they put up their data centers here and both the public and private sector keep that data inside.
There's another thing, Nilesh, the announcement that there is going to be a high-level committee for banking reforms. We should read a lot into that, isn't it? Ownership and control, maybe the 26% voting rights, all that could be taken off. I mean, it's a high-level committee. They're laying a great store on building on what is now a very healthy banking system. Your thoughts?
Undoubtedly, to grow, you require investment. To make investments, you require a banking system which can channelize savings to investment. We are also seeing transition where savers are becoming investors. And if our banking system is not ready for future, Viksit Bharat can never happen. I hope and pray this high-level committee on banking, which is a standing committee and not a one-time committee, discusses all these aspects with regulators, with participants, and with market. And we truly lay a foundation for Viksit Bharat, which is enabled by its own banking system, its own savers.
Listening in, and when the data center thing was, you want to add something?
No, I think if you were to ask me before the budget, what were the two big opportunities, I would say GCCs and data centers. I've repeatedly said that. And in many ways, the budget has addressed both those quite adequately. The toll manufacturing is actually an add-on because we were all focusing on services. But I think there is recognition that in view of tariff and everything else, India needs to be more competitive.
This 40,000 crore allocation for electronic components, semiconductors, etc., right? That has been announced.
Yes.
Which is components as well, EMS, PCB assembly, box build, etc. I think meaningful increase in allocation?
Yeah, certainly meaningful increase in allocation, particularly because nobody was expecting this to happen.
But how does it come to the listed companies? We have to wait and see.
We'll have to wait and see.
Okay.
What the conditions are. We need to just see the preconditions that they need to satisfy. But I would argue, if I look at the stock market and if some people have read it, then some people like Amber and Keynes seem to have been in the product range where this applies. Dixon had moved up when the initial announcement came and then seems to have corrected downwards. So perhaps their focus on iPhones is not getting the traction.
Mr. Kama, we interrupted you. The last word, quickly, if you want.
Just one other small thing. There has been this whole issue on tax litigation, where if an officer makes an addition, you got to pay 20% tax before you appeal. That's now gone to 10%. Very, very welcome.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for throwing light so quickly on so many things. I just want to add that the math of the budget is perfect. Our poll said 10.1% nominal growth. The budget has come with 10%. Our poll said 4.3% fiscal deficit. It's 4.3. Our poll said net borrowing will be 11.76. It has come at 11.7. So budget is not trying to be aggressive in any of the numbers. Back to you, Shri.
All right, thanks very much. The first reaction now from the CII, CNBC TV18 budget headquarters. Rajiv Memani, what did you like from what the finance minister delivered?
I would say that it's very much in continuation of the earlier budget. So you can see a very clear thrust on manufacturing and identifying the 7 sectors go after. A lot of thrust on infrastructure, MSMEs, on tourism, and also a lot of labor-intensive sectors. Yeah. So I think you saw a focus on manufacturing and others, but we also saw a lot of focus on the labor-intensive sectors like tourism, textiles, and areas like that. And what I liked, Shireen, was that in earlier budgets, you always saw a number. This time, I think a lot of it was ecosystem, a lot of it was skilling. So, they're building those big blocks, and then the benefits that they've given to electronics manufacturing, the tax simplification on IT services and data centers, I think those are all very positive.
Positive. Vinayak Chatterjee, you've got a notebook out now. So in terms of numbers, the big takeaway for you on the Capex side, high-speed rail, the big announcement coming in there as well, and of course, freight corridors.
So I'm not disappointed on the Capex side because, I was looking at a high number, as you well know,
yes,
and others well know, at 14 lakh. And instead of that, we've got 12.2, which is an 11% increase in last year. But I'm not disappointed because as I was walking in, I was briefed that you shouldn't just take 12.2 at face value, add the grant in aid to states, which is that 50-year free money for infrastructure, and add many of the announcements on social infra, like those 5 university townships and all of that. Yeah. And you'll possibly come to a figure which might actually exceed my expectation of 3.5%. So let me do the maths and get back to you in the next few days. But what I liked about the budget was 2 very clear dominant themes in infrastructure. The first was a complete focus on rejuvenation of tier 2 and tier 3 cities of India, which are crumbling. And a lot of measures there. I won't take your time outlining them. Yeah. And the second thing was a very major transformational agenda for Indian Railways, which is now forcing them to actually look and implement 7 high-speed rail corridors across the country. Now, remember, high-speed rail is just a shade lower than the bullet train. So 7 new high-speed rail corridors will be a transformational agenda for the Indian railway traveling public. And very quickly, there are 4 other sub-themes. Social infrastructure, many issues there. Coastal and inland waterways, once again resurrected. Financial restructuring, PFC, REC. And finally, specific tax benefits for nuclear, biogas and CNG.
Also the municipal bond measure.
Big. 100 crore incentive to a city that does 1,000 crore bond issue is a 10% incentive. I mean, it makes the whole bond issue very viable for the financiers. Yeah, and it says that the scheme for smaller cities continues to exist under the Amrit scheme. Right. So big fillip to municipal financing.
Okay, CB, the big takeaway for you?
So you heard some of that, but to me, I think India has stayed on the course of fiscal and economic prudence. I think the fiscal deficit, the debt to GDP ratio, these are very, very important global signals in today's world. I think I look at it, the macro picture, a good health of the economy and good prudence. That's one. Second, I think, when we talked about boost to the manufacturing and the SME, that was pretty much there and that was pretty much required. But to look at who will finance it, the banks, and to look at and when we need bank consolidation, etc., etc.
So you believe that is why this committee has been set up, is to essentially look at the whole area of bank consolidation, public sector bank consolidation.
I would imagine so. That was the second big point that I saw. Vinayak spoke about infrastructure, but I see through that infrastructure the cost of doing business, the logistics cost, and therefore our competitiveness to the world getting very well connected. The fourth part is I see sectors called out for which are job creating, and the way the focus on skills and connecting that to tourism, etc. I found that to be good, innovative, and last I would think it is not forgotten about while it talks about health. Again, you see the connectivity to the future of health.
The medical hubs,
tech, the AI,
and medical
all
tourism.
Of that. I find that to be very, very, quite standing out features.
Okay, Mr. Mukundan, what stood out for you for Budget 26?
So firstly, I think it keeps in what I've been highlighting, that this budget must be build-forward budget, not a big bang budget. And it's been a big build-forward budget, and especially focusing on external challenges on the external front. I think what they've done is to integrate even more tightly with the international market. And for that, what they've done, firstly, give a boost to exports, at the same time, get investments from overseas. When it comes to boost to exports, it is not just signing the FTAs, but also backing that up with custom elements, in addition to also the procedures. They've focused a lot on procedures to make sure it is done. At the same time, I think this budget highlights two other areas which are focused, which is greening. If you look at the slew of measures which have been announced, each one of them is towards the biogas. When you talk about nuclear power, when you talk about the sodium anti-money for the solar panel, it is so focused on green products that it's very, very sharply towards greening. And lastly, I think Chandrajit already highlighted about skilling. There's a whole...
in different sectors.
Not just different sectors. She's actually linking education, employment and entrepreneurship for the first time and bringing a holistic approach to how do we make this work.
Right. No, absolutely. Rajiv Memani, let me, before I know you're tied up, all of you need to be elsewhere, but very quickly on tax, buyback as well as the safe harbor changes that they've made for cloud services, how significant will that be to draw in fresh investment?
No, it's very good. So I think, let me go on the buyback side, it's not so much for
fresh investment, but it's to remove the pain,
Remove the pain, that was a big demand because it was being taxed as dividend. Capital gains tax to promoters. I think they kept somewhere between dividends and capital gains tax. Then you come to IT services. The big thing, and they've widened the definition of IT services. It obviously includes capability center, software development, everything. They never knew what the transfer pricing would be.
Right.
And the earlier safe harbor was restricted to turnover of 300 crores. They've raised that to 2,000 crores. 15.5% is a very fair number. I think they've put that. So I think anyone who sets up a global capability center or anything else, he knows that this is the transfer pricing regime that they're looking at. On data centers, actually, it's not so much safe. I think the entire I don't believe that it will be a 22-year exemption. I find it hard to believe. There must be 15 years within
sure.
Yes,
we'll have to look at the fine print.
That's big.
Yeah, that is big. Well, gentlemen, unfortunately, we are out of time for now, but we'll keep coming back to you for more on the fine print. But let's go across to the big man, Amitabh Kant, with us as well. Mr. Kant, your first read of Budget 2026.
Well, I think it's fiscally a very prudent budget, because these are very complex times. We are in the midst of a huge global disruption. There's a lot of geopolitical fragmentation. And for the finance minister to have kept the fiscal deficit at 4.3%, to have kept brought down the debt to GDP ratio and yet pushed the Capex spend to 12.2 lakh crore, I think to my mind, it's a very, very sensible, rational, and a very progressive budget to my mind. But the important thing is really that she's given a push to both manufacturing, which was critical, and given a huge push to infrastructure in her budget. And, this focus on providing cities with 5,000 crore per city for economic region and the 7 high-speed rail corridor which will link up the growth the growth connectors, as they call it, should eventually give a huge focus to urbanization in many ways. And if you look at what she had announced last year, which should get implemented this year, is the 1 lakh crore schemes for for urban rejuvenation through the challenge route. All that put together should add a big thrust to urbanization as well. So manufacturing, infrastructure, urbanization are really the big focus. But one thing, I think the standout of this entire budget is if you look at investments across the world, 70 to 75% of the investment is getting into artificial intelligence and data centers. So I think the really smart move in this entire budget is the 100% tax exemption to data centers till 2047. It's quite an incredible move to my mind. And this should really push not merely data centers, but AI, the use of Indian data, computing power, all that to India in a very, very big way.
In fact, Rajiv Memani here just commented that he couldn't believe that it is a tax-free period of 22 years, and perhaps there will be something there in the fine print that we'll have to see. But Mr. Kant, you know, the number flashing on our screens is 80,000 crores in disinvestment, and the government is so, you know, the last few years been very measured on its disinvestment target. The question is, are they factoring in IDBI Bank? Fairfax is one of the front runners. What do you think?
No, they should push for, I'm a great believer that the government should push for disinvestment in a very big way, including IDBI. They should also push for two other banks and an insurance company, which was announced a couple of years back. They should push for asset monetization in a very big way. I'm a great believer in free enterprise. India can't grow at rates of 8 to 9% for 3 decades without the private sector accelerating the pace of growth. And the government needs to get out of some of these areas of growth. So pushing this target of 80,000 crores is good. I think it should be, we should push for many more government companies to be privatized and much more of asset monetization to take place.
Well, yes, that is certainly the hope. But, you know, if I were to ask you whether this budget does enough in the near term, Mr. Kant, to try and draw back both portfolio investors as well as strategic investors, FDI, in the medium to long term, yes, many measures that you spoke of, but does it change sentiment in the near term?
Well, the budget talks about, you know, you need predictability and consistency of policies. That's critical from an investor's viewpoint. So when she talks about, when the FM talks about reform of FEMA, the non-debt instrument rules, she talks about customs reforms and making it trust-based. She talks about rationalization of duties there. And she talks about a high-level committee for financial sector reforms. And she talks about the new Income Tax Act being implemented from the 1st April. So if you put all these together, then you're pushing for an easier, you're making for easy, far greater level of easiness and simplicity in the tax regime. I wish she had also announced that the custom slab rates will be brought down to 3 rather than 8 right now. And I wish there was more focus on the cost of competitiveness, because the cost of competitiveness is critical for India in the long run. All these are critical, but she's pushed quite a bit in terms of
we'll chat about some of those. We'll chat about some of those issues left on the agenda. But Ramdev Agarwal waiting by. Prashant, over to you.
Well, okay, I'll take it over from here. Shireen, Ramdev Agarwal, thank you very much for joining us. First thoughts, Ramdev, the market sulking over STT, but after it gets over, are there positives?
Yeah, I think total highlight is the data center tax benefit for next 22 years. That's the key highlight, because data center is the biggest infra build all over the world. Biggest, like running into trillions of dollars. And we were not participating at that force. And now with this, it looks that doors are open for the AI, the impact of AI coming into India. And we want to make India as an AI factory of the world. And hence, this is the first initiative. And I think it's a very laudable one. I remember the software boom happened in India in 90s because of the STP benefit which they gave, where 10 years it was tax-free. So I think it's a very powerful tool to attract the investments. India has the lowest cost of power, lowest cost of infrastructure, and very large AI population. So I think it's a very significant one, and it has a lot of correlations in terms of which are going to be the beneficiary. Because you need a lot of air conditioning, you need a lot of cables, you need a lot of construction, real estate construction. So let's see, how it happens and at what size the data centers start coming up all over the country, wherever there is excess power. So it can fire up massive capex because it's very capital intensive. So it can fire up very large capital spending projects if it is handled well.
Mr. Agar, Ramdevji, good afternoon. The only thing is, I was talking to somebody who works in the field who was saying that this is, and the tax experts told us, it's a data center providing cloud services for foreign companies. For local income is taxed. It is foreign companies. So this this consultant who was talking to was saying, how will they, data sovereignty is such a big thing that, like, for example, India wants its own data within its borders. So how is this going to, maybe the policy detail will have something, but Meta is not going to set up a data center to service its American customers, right? Because they want American data in America. So how will this really work or benefit? That's the only question, which was raised to me by somebody.
Yeah, so I think I also don't have any more detail than what I've heard here. But America is not the only country in the world to use AI.
Any company, any country, any
million. Any country. So we could be supplying to non-American or non-European destinations. For Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, your entire Middle East. I think this is a place where you should have the data center and the services manufactured here. So there are enough geographies where who cannot set up their own data centers would be finding it here to be set up the possibility. But those are different issues, Prashant. Right now, the issue is that this is a very big initiative, and whatever changes are to be made in terms of taxation change, I think that will come through. I don't see any reason why you tax a data center serving to the foreigners and not to the domestic users.
Yeah, I take your point on that. That is one advantage.
Just one thing, Gokuldas, if we can pull up Gokuldas, I'm not sure there's something, as the day goes by, as always happens, more and more details come through. Gokuldas is up 10%. It surged to the day's high, above 600 rupees. Just wanted to highlight that. Go on, Lata.
No, I agree with you because she has been speaking about textiles and the advantages they get. So we have to go with a fine-tooth comb to see how Gokuldas may be advantaged. Ramdevji, that's exactly what I wanted to ask you. The companies which do CDMO, kind of completely knocked down and then re-exporting, especially from SEZs, they are getting not a 5-year but a 10-year tax holiday. There are some nuggets like this, and there are companies like Keynes which are doing very well. Likewise, the API companies are doing very well, probably because of this. Can you notice sector-wise any advantages from the budget speech?
No, actually, I got spooked with the capital market proposals, about the STT and the impact of that in the market. So that was one part of it, and the buyback relief for the retail investors.
Yes,
that was one part of it. Third was this. What I saw about this data center exemption. This is very big, and I think it doves every other proposal of the budget. This itself is a 1,000-pound gorilla.
Okay. What about NRIs allowed to come into PMSs in India? Would that look very big?
Which one?
NRIs used to buy shares directly. Now they can put money in PMSs in India. What they call PROIs. The NRI word is permanent resident outside India. There seems to be a lot of concessions for them to come through PMS companies. Has that been noticed by your team?
Yeah, we saw that, but they're all at the margin. If markets do well, if the earnings come through, I think these things are going to help, but they're marginal in the sense that I don't think that's going to have that much of an impact in the short run.
Okay.
By the way, this Ramdevji, from your broking business, broking business head and team, etc., any feedback on this STT?
Yeah, so good. One thing is that today is Sunday, all the institutions are closed, local as well as global. And FIs are definitely out of the market today. So real impact of this will be seen tomorrow in terms of how are they thinking about this particular thing, because a lot of marginal trades will become unviable. So the high frequency traders, for them it will be unviable. A lot of it will be unviable. Second, there are a lot of products, arbitrage products, where a lot of money is there. Those will become unviable, and hence there will be a lot of redemption in those products whenever this new regime comes in. So the market will get less leveraged and less liquid. So the impact on the market will be a little more bearish because of this particular provision. Because the sheer viability of a lot of trades will not be there. So we'll see the full impact of it tomorrow. Good thing is, I think these things are applicable only from 1st April. So we have some time for the market to adjust.
Ramdevji, FIIs, when they come back tomorrow, will they press the buy button or the sell button?
That is for you to decide.
No.
I don't think this is a buy. Yeah. This measure is not a buy measure. So obviously, one has to figure out how much they sell, how furious they are. Basically, it all depends on. In any case, they were on an exit mode. So will it trigger further exits? Because right now the global market has so many stress points. This is not opportune time to actually give one more headache to them. You know,
did
time
you
to keep them at least peaceful at home and not trouble them, because they are already suffering from.
And you were saying that this at the margin, and Ramdevji, and you're saying at the margin this will trouble them. You're saying how furious they are. We'll have to see. Yeah.
That we'll have to see tomorrow only. I mean, right now, my information is not that much more. I can just speak to some of my traders here, because those guys are actually on holiday. Today is Sunday.
No, I get it. Ramdevji, there's one more.
No, only tomorrow. I hope the impact is minimal, because we have still got 2 months' time for it to get implemented. So tomorrow itself, they don't have to do anything. But incrementally, I don't think it's a very positive measure for their activities in India.
Okay, just a final question to you, Ramdevji. Excise duty, union excise duty, according to the budget papers, budget at a glance, is rising by 6%. Now, union excise duty is applied only on oil marketing, right? Oil products. So, do you think this is going to look like OMC negative? Usually, the excise duty in a typical year rises by maybe 3%. This is 6%, the total kitty.
Okay, so they might be expecting 5-6% volume growth during the year. At current prices, they might be expecting 5-6% volume growth. Or maybe some mix change or something like that. So 5-6% doesn't look that alarming.
Okay. Well, we've got some more guests joining us. Rajiv Anand, the Managing Director and CEO at IndusInd Bank. Nirmal Jain, founder of IIFL Group. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Rajiv, two things for banks. One, the borrowing number, 17.2 lakh crore. First, your thoughts on that.
I think it's a little higher than expected, but one would imagine that RBI will manage as they have every year through a mix of OMOs and switches. So I don't think, yes, the gross borrowing program is a bit of a concern, but I think if you look at it at a net number, the numbers don't look alarming. I think more importantly, the fiscal math at 10% nominal looks very, very credible. Absolutely. And I think there is a little bit of leeway in terms of non-tax receipts as well. Yes, I think in the very short term, a little negative, but and you will probably see yields going up a little bit on Monday. Yeah. But I think that should adjust itself over a period of time.
No, I agree with you completely. The fiscal math is excellent. No aggressive assumptions. And then there is this banking committee they have appointed to suggest reforms ahead. Is that looking like a very big positive? I mean, ownership, voting rights, everything could be up for changes?
I think those are the two big ones, isn't it? I mean, I think there's been a lot of debate around ownership of banks, here in India, and this disconnect between ownership and voting rights. I think that will form the crux of how the banking industry in India will get built over the next 25 years. We've begun to see, the first cut of that. We've seen a couple of transactions where where there's been a fundamental shift in the way that the regulator has thought about the SMBC Yes Bank transaction and the Emirates RBL transaction, is in a sense showing you the way that the regulator is thinking about these issues.
Ramdevji, if I can come to you, there's one specific thing, which is dividends from mutual fund cannot be set off against dividend income cannot be set off against interest paid on borrowings. Is that I was just checking with the tax expert. Is that a big thing? Will that have a big impact?
Within mutual funds?
Dividend from mutual funds, you could have set off up to 20% against interest paid on borrowings. That has gone away. That is what our tax experts, Dinesh Kanabar and Ashok Wadhwa. So I'm just thinking, will this apply to like leverage trades and all? People borrowing to, and this will be largely for investment companies and HNIs, etc. But could it have a big impact?
I think it will be very individualistic in the sense that who is doing leverage trade and those kind of guys, they will not get the break against the dividend, what interest they are paying. So you have to pay tax on that. So I think it will be very marginal. For most of the guys, overall aggregate, I don't think it's big.
Okay. Nirmal Jain is with us as well. Nirmal, if you can come in on this particular aspect. Interest cannot be offset against dividends you get on mutual funds. Any thoughts here?
I mean, it's a little negative because 20% what was allowed earlier, so it might increase tax liability a little. But I mean, the overall scheme of things, this is not a significant mover or shaker in the market.
Okay. You know, what I'll do is, I have more questions for both Nirmal and Rajiv. Ramdevji, thank you very much for joining us right now. So, and you have a busy day ahead, so we'll see you later. We'll just take a very quick break here. Come right back with Rajiv Anand and Nirmal Jain.
नारी शक्ति का सशक्त प्रतिबिंब झलकता है। महिला वित्त मंत्री के रूप में निर्मला जी ने लगातार 9वीं बार देश का बजट प्रस्तुत करके नया रिकॉर्ड बनाया है। ये बजट अपार अवसरों का राजमार्ग है। ये बजट वर्तमान के सपनों को साकार करता है और भारत के उज्जवल भविष्य की नींव को सशक्त करता है। ये बजट 2047 के विकसित भारत की हमारी ऊंची उड़ान का मजबूत आधार है। साथियों, आज भारत जिस रिफॉर्म एक्सप्रेस पर सवार है, इस बजट से उसे नई ऊर्जा, नई गति मिलेगी। जो पाथ ब्रेकिंग रिफॉर्म्स किए गए हैं, वो एस्पिरेशन से भरे हुए भारत के साहसिक, टैलेंटेड युवाओं को उड़ने के लिए खुला आसमान देते हैं। ये बजट ट्रस्ट बेस्ड गवर्नेंस और ह्यूमन सेंट्रिक अर्थरचना के विजन को साकार करता है। एक ऐसा यूनिक बजट है जिसमें फिस्कल डेफिसिट कम करने, इन्फ्लेशन कंट्रोल करने पर फोकस है और इसके साथ ही बजट में हाई कैपेक्स और हाई ग्रोथ का भी समन्वय है। साथियों, ये बजट भारत की वैश्विक भूमिका को नए सिरे से सशक्त करता है। भारत के 140 करोड़ नागरिक फास्टेस्ट ग्रोइंग इकोनॉमी बनकर ही संतुष्ट नहीं है। हम जल्द से जल्द दुनिया की तीसरी सबसे बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्था बनना चाहते हैं। ये करोड़ों देशवासियों का संकल्प है। दुनिया के एक ट्रस्टेड डेमोक्रेटिक पार्टनर और ट्रस्टेड क्वालिटी सप्लायर के रूप में भारत की भूमिका लगातार बढ़ रही है। हाल में जो बड़ी बड़ी ट्रेड डील्स भारत ने की है, मदर ऑफ ऑल डील्स, उसका मैक्सिमम बेनिफिट भारत के युवाओं को मिले, भारत के लघु और मध्यम उद्योग वालों को मिले। इस दिशा में बजट में बड़े बड़े कदम उठाए गए हैं। साथियों, इस बजट में मेक इन इंडिया और आत्मनिर्भर भारत अभियान को नई रफ्तार के लिए महत्वाकांक्षी रोड मैप प्रस्तुत किया गया है। इस बजट में नई उभरती इंडस्ट्रीज यानी सनराइज सेक्टर्स को जिस मजबूती के साथ समर्थन दिया गया है, वह अभूतपूर्व है। बायोफार्मा शक्ति मिशन, सेमीकंडक्टर मिशन 2.0, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कंपोनेंट मैन्युफैक्चरिंग स्कीम, रेयर अर्थ कॉरिडोर का निर्माण, क्रिटिकल मिनरल्स पर बल, टेक्सटाइल सेक्टर में नई स्कीम, हाईटेक टूल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग को बढ़ावा, चैंपियन एमएसएमई तैयार करना, ये फ्यूचरिस्टिक है, देश की वर्तमान और भविष्य की आवश्यकताओं का ध्यान रखती है। एमएसएमई को, हमारे लघु और कुटीर उद्योगों को जो समर्थन इस बजट में मिला है, वह उन्हें लोकल से ग्लोबल बनने की नई ताकत देगा। साथियों, बजट में इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को मजबूत करने के लिए कई बड़े कदम उठाए गए हैं। डेडिकेटेड फ्रेट कॉरिडोर, देश भर में वाटरवेज का विस्तार, हाई स्पीड रेल कॉरिडोर, टियर 2 और टियर 3 शहरों के विकास पर विशेष ध्यान और शहरों को मजबूत आर्थिक आधार देने के लिए म्युनिसिपल बॉन्ड्स को बढ़ावा, ये सारे कदम विकसित भारत की यात्रा की गति को और तेज करेंगे। साथियों, किसी भी देश की सबसे बड़ी पूंजी उसके नागरिक होते हैं। बीते वर्षों में हमारी सरकार ने देश के नागरिकों के सामर्थ्य को बढ़ाने पर अभूतपूर्व निवेश किया है। हमारा प्रयास स्किल, स्केल और सस्टेनेबिलिटी को निरंतर बल देने का रहा है। जैसा कि आज पार्लियामेंट में निर्मला जी ने कहा है, यह युवा शक्ति बजट है। उसमें युवा की सोच भी है, युवा के सपने भी हैं, युवा का संकल्प भी है और साथ साथ युवा की गति भी है। बजट में जो प्रावधान किए गए हैं उससे अलग अलग सेक्टर्स में लीडर्स, इनोवेटर्स और क्रिएटर्स तैयार होंगे। मेडिकल हब्स के निर्माण से, एलाइड हेल्थ प्रोफेशनल्स के माध्यम से, ऑरेंज इकोनॉमी यानी ऑडियो विजुअल गेमिंग को बढ़ावा देकर, पर्यटन को प्रोत्साहन देकर और खेलो इंडिया मिशन के माध्यम से युवाओं के लिए नए अवसरों के द्वार खुलेंगे। भारत को दुनिया का डेटा सेंटर हब बनाने के लिए टैक्स में बड़ी छूट की घोषणा भी की गई है। मैं भारत के युवाओं को विशेष तौर पर इस बजट की बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं, क्योंकि इससे एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेशन को बड़ा बूस्ट मिलेगा। मुझे बहुत खुशी है कि इस बजट में टूरिज्म और विशेषकर नॉर्थ ईस्ट में टूरिज्म को बढ़ावा देने के लिए भी ठोस कदम उठाए गए हैं। भारत के अलग अलग राज्यों को ताकतवर बनाकर संतुलित विकास की नींव भी इस बजट में मजबूत की गई है। साथियों, हमारे देश में 10 करोड़ से ज्यादा महिलाएं सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप से जुड़ी हैं और बड़ा सफल अभियान रहा है। महिलाओं द्वारा निर्मित, महिलाओं द्वारा संचालित सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप्स का आधुनिक इकोसिस्टम बने, बजट में इसे प्राथमिकता दी गई है। कोशिश यही है कि हर घर लक्ष्मी जी पधारे। हर जिले में छात्राओं के लिए नए हॉस्टल बनाने का अभियान भी शिक्षा को सुलभ बनाएगा। साथियों, भारत की कृषि, डेयरी सेक्टर, फिशरीज, इन्हें हमारी सरकार ने हमेशा सर्वोच्च प्राथमिकता दी है। इस बजट में भी नारियल, काजू, कोको और चंदन की पैदावार से जुड़े किसानों के लिए अनेक अहम कदम उठाए गए हैं। भारत विस्तार एआई, इस टूल से किसानों को उनकी भाषा में जानकारी मिलने से उन्हें बहुत मदद मिलेगी। फिशरीज और पशुपालन में उद्यमिता, उसको बढ़ावा देने से गांव में ही रोजगार और स्वरोजगार के और ज्यादा अवसर बनेंगे। साथियों, ये बजट एम्बिशियस भी है और ये बजट देश की एस्पिरेशन को भी एड्रेस करता है। मैं एक बार फिर निर्मला जी और उनकी पूरी टीम को इस फ्यूचरिस्टिक बजट के लिए, संवेदनशील बजट के लिए, गांव, गरीब, किसान का कल्याण करने वाले बजट के लिए बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Well, that is the Prime Minister in this, address right after the budget. Every budget, of course, he comes through highlighting what the Finance Minister has announced, and of course, congratulating Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman for presenting her 9th budget. It's a record in terms of, as finance ministers go. Rajiv Anand is, of course, been waiting by. Rajiv, good afternoon. Prashant here, and thank you for waiting patiently. Anything else comes to mind? Lata, of course, asked you a few things, but what do you think the net effect of all of what has been announced is going to be on sort of pushing through high rates of credit into the system? That will depend on demand for credit. What do you think this does?
Two things, Prashant. One is, apart from everything that's been said about increased Capex and data centers, etc., that we've been hearing all afternoon, I think two things. One is the big focus on MSMEs. The fact that the government will now start to provide capital for MSMEs as well. I mean, typically what happens to MSMEs is capital is raised from internal, friends and family. Now there will be a pool that will be available from the government as well, which is certainly positive. A bigger focus on TREDs, I think, is a huge positive. One of the things that MSMEs suffer from somewhat is delayed payments from government entities. And therefore choking working capital, and this will certainly help that as well. So I think for banks like us who are looking to build out a large MSME franchise, I think all this is very positive, because I think the underlying pool of available borrowers will only increase going forward. And the second is, I think one of the big issues that the markets have been facing is the higher and higher levels of borrowing from state governments. I think the fact that now 41% of devolution based on the Finance Commission is now going to the states, I think to that extent will certainly assuage some of these concerns. So I think those are the two that I've not heard much about, so which is why I wanted to highlight those.
Rajiv, hi. Do you want to comment on the overall gross borrowing number of more than 17 lakh crore? It may lead to yields remaining high, treasury income gets hit. Do you see this as an issue for a bank?
I think, like I mentioned to Lata as well, that I think the gross borrowing program is slightly higher than market expectations. But I think year on year, every year for the last 3-4 years, the RBI has done a fantastic job in managing, that demand supply situation and yields. So I do expect them to come in with OMOs and switches to be able to manage the volatility as far as yields are concerned as a result of this. Remember that the net borrowing program continues to be well contained as per market expectations.
Rajiv, thank you very much for staying with us on this important day. And I'm sure as budgets go, more details, etc., will come through. But I think the bigger thrust you've given us, directionally speaking. Thank you very much for joining us. Pankaj Tibriwal is with us, founder and CIO at Ikagai Asset Managers. Pankaj, I think there are lots of positives, no doubt. As Rajiv was pointing out, others have pointed out as well. But this STT bid is just, I think more than anything else, it's the timing of the thing, right? Which has taken a bite out of the sentiment at this point. Just your first thoughts, first impressions, and then we'll get down to specifics.
So, Prashant, I think market has overreacted on this because of maybe the prevailing sentiment right now. If you look at the ballpark number, it will get about 20-25,000 crores. So one way you can argue that for that 20-25,000 crore, it was not necessary at this point of time because the sentiments were quite fragile, both domestically and globally. And India has been one of the worst performing markets. But you slightly take a medium-term view and look at the past. I think in the near term, there's some volume reaction which may happen at the exchanges and by speculators. But over a 3, 4, 6 months period, history suggests that things starts to get normalized. So I'm not very concerned.
Who's there?
I think market has been, expecting a little bit of tweaking out on long-term capital gains and short-term capital gains. That has not happened. But overall, if you ask me, it's quite a pragmatic budget. You remember, Prashant, always in the past, the first half an hour, 45 minutes, we used to talk about rural, farm, and that used to take a lot of time. If you notice this time, it was all about manufacturing. And the rural part was just a very small mention in the entire speech. So I think the focus clearly reflects that is moving from farm to what means for the actual economy. And a lot of mention about AI, data centers, new age technology, and manufacturing. So I think it's quite a pragmatic budget, if you ask me. It could have been worse on taxation, but nothing, no bad news is good news in my view. So I would take it saying that markets will digest it over the next couple of days and think that it is not as bad as it is made out to be on the screen today.
Okay, Pankaj, stay with us. In the morning, we promised that we will get you both the two big exchanges, right? NSE, we beamed out of in the morning. We rang the bell from the NSE, and now Mangalam is at the BSC covering the full ground. Vikas Khemani is with him. And there are a few other guests as well, including N. Jaykumar. Mangalam, take it away.
That's correct. So we do have with us the three wise men of the market. We have Rahul, we have Vikas, we have Jakes as well. We come to you from the Bombay Stock Exchange after beaming live from the National Stock Exchange this morning. Gentlemen, the overarching reaction so far has been that it is a balanced budget. The only fly in the ointment was the increase that was there in the STT in futures and options. Now that, there has been some analysis done on some of the fine print of the budget as well, the net borrowings, the gross borrowings, etc. What are the actionable ideas and what are your initial thoughts? Vikas?
I think so. This budget has to be seen in the light of the last year's budget when there was a huge income tax rate cut and GST cut happened during the year. So the maneuverability of the finance minister is kind of limited in that sense from a tax collection perspective. And within that, I think she has done a good job. What I like about this budget is, of course, there's a huge focus on the manufacturing side in the EMS, textiles, semiconductors. So I think entire manufacturing space has been addressed with a reasonably good boost, and it comes also in the context of current FTAs with different countries. So I think it's a very, very good initiative they have taken from a manufacturing side. Secondly, if you see our capital expenditure has gone up. Defense expenditure has been, budgeted more than about 18-19%. Railways is up about 10%. Roads. So I think public Capex is also a good increase, which is, I think, positive. Also, first time, I think Minister has talked about a big focus on the services industry, where she has put a vision that how do I attract medical tourism, how do I attract tourists, and overall target 10% of the world services market. That's the kind of vision. So they've kind of given a roadmap in terms of how she wants to achieve that. And few things which have been missed or probably not well appreciated, that they've given tax incentives for data center till zero corporate tax for 2040, still 2047 on data centers. Gift city tax holiday has increased from 10 to 20. So a lot of measurements have been done to do improve the ease of the business. Yes, of course, disappointing factor is, in my opinion, STT increase, which was not required. There's a widespread demand of the industry that long-term capital gain tax and STT both should not coexist because they were alternative to each other. But today, in reality, we have both of them, and without getting any credit of STT, which is a very, very big dampener. Something was definitely expected on the lines of liquidity improvement in the system, which probably can come outside budget also. But today we are sitting on a poor sentiment from a FI perspective. Some amount of measurement or initiative or discussion could have been kind of welcome on that. But net I would say it's a good budget, and it's continuation more of same of their past policies, and with a little bit of things which I talked about have been taken care.
Jakes, given the current sentiment, do you think more of the same is good for now, or there could have been a lot more? Do you think it's a missed opportunity?
So I think you could look at it both ways. One is to say that here's a batsman who's got a century there. Can he go for a double 100 by the singles and an occasional boundary, or do you need to be, because you've achieved 100, you've achieved everything? I think the message being given is that there's a long way to go. So all your targets are 2047, 2031, 2035 kind of dates for things to be achieved. I agree with Vikas in that a lot of, pylons have been put into the ground, to be able to build something on top of it over a period of time.
I'm really bullish about this entire digital highway, digital infrastructure that's being sought to be created, which now includes data centers, which includes telecom infrastructure, and the kind of incentives that have been now laid out for people to make investments over a 2-decade period. I think that's the big thing. Two, FIIs have been an integral part of the market. So to the extent that their, if you will, grievances have not been addressed, is an ongoing saga. But to my mind, there has to be 1 or 2 areas that you need to, to get up from the table and say has not been addressed, because it might be something for the future. Domestic liquidity improvements, RBI continues to do. The fiscal push is coming from the government in that sense. So I'm reasonably okay with it. A couple of flies in the ointment, if you will, which is things like the STT. Because if the idea was that it should be a deterrent rather than, a revenue generating tool, which I'm beginning to understand will be the kind of logic that they will give you, then really there needs to be net worth and other criteria to keep people away. You can't make it accessible to one and all and yet say that, you're going to have a continuing increase in STD charge. That doesn't make sense.
It's like the sale of loose cigarettes and then taxing them as
exactly.
earlier pointed out.
So I think the narrative there needs to be more clear. It is a deterrent. We don't want people to come in except through mutual funds, and therefore either contract size, etc., can go up. Other than that, I feel the biopharma initiative, for instance, and if you look at overall, some sectors are hugely benefited from a weakening rupee, etc., which is outside the budget, and they continue to get trust, like the biopharma, as I said, is one, or infrastructure, the data centers, etc., and the attraction of services. So all in all, some repetition to what he said, but this is really the take.
Rahul, tomorrow when the market opens full steam, what would be the 2 or 3 things that you would do given the current budget? What sectors would you deploy in, and what sectors would you take the money out of?
So, from a client perspective, correct, like what Jas also said, like Jex also said, that manufacturing and infra has got a good push. So, those are the sectors which someone should look out for. Pharma and hospitals, because there has been medical tourism which has been announced. And also real estate sectors which support data centers from power, etc. I think these are interesting sectors to which I would look out for. And something which you should get away from, I would say defense versus expectation, which has not been up to the mark, is one thing which you can look out for.
All right, take that point. Thanks a lot, gentlemen, for joining in. Those are the 3 wise men at the BSE. I'll